Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. I Today is Sunday, the 22nd of June, and I know that without looking at um, my phone because yesterday was the solstice, the longest day of the year, and it's a day that they often pull bullshit things like this. Um, Trump dropped missiles last night or whatever he did, bombs and nuclear sites in Iran. Um, Off of the solstices and the equinoxes, they do these types of things, right? And so I made a video yesterday that would be going up this morning, and I'm going to just add this on to it or put it on the beginning of the video for obvious reasons. This is, you know, everyone knows this has happened. Um, I want to get to Trump's tweet here briefly and then talk about my reaction. And then I'll show the rest of my other video, and I'll cover this more as the story develops. But here's Anderson J. Cooper.
I want to put the statement by President Trump up on the screen. He says in a Truth Social post, "We have completed our very successful attack on the 3 nuclear sites in Iran, including Fordo, Natanz, and Esfahan. All planes are now outside of Iran airspace. A full payload of bombs was dropped on the primary site, Fordo. All planes are safely on their way home. Congratulations to our great American warriors. There's not another military in the world that could have done this. Now is the time for peace. Thank you for your attention to this matter." I'm here with...
Okay, so I'm going to go through this whole fucking thing. You know, there's times when they have Trump tweet something. For one, he just announcing this by tweeting on his fucking bullshit truth social thing, which, I was all in favor of, right? Before the election, I said he should put up, this is in 2020, he should make his own social media platform because people are getting deplatformed. And, post the election, I brought it up again, like he should do this right away, but he should have already done it. And then they deplatformed him after the election. Remember that all that shit happened after January 6th and that stuff. And, it made it so when Fox News turned on him, which they totally did, which was funny. And then, they called the election for Biden before anybody else. And they were, they couldn't do this thing in 2016. They helped Trump in 2016 and turned on him in 2020, and they wanted him out. Remember the New York Post had turned on Trump. They called him Humpty Trumpty. I mean, everyone was wanted him out. All the Republicans were like, let's just get rid of this guy. The neocons, and so that's all that stuff happened. And so Trump, I said, he should have his own social media. But when it came out as True Social, and then Trump failed so epically to the last 6 months of his presidency, and then going into the post-election stuff, and then everything he did for 3 years, the 3.5 years after that, there's no way that you can call this guy, truth. These are not truths. He's a lying piece of shit, right? Which I've covered a lot lately. And so the whole thing with the truth bothers me because these people who claim to be truthers, and my next video, the one I was going to make today, has that woman from Texas. I'll remember her name later, but it's not important. She's a House of Representatives. She's a person who got into it with Marjorie Taylor Greene. And, she's saying wake up. And, there's all these terms have been hijacked. And I want to talk about this in my, video for tomorrow. I'm going to probably lead with that. What can be called a truther, or what can be called, just bare basic stuff. And Trump can't be called that in any way, shape, or form. He's the biggest liar. So this part right here, thank you for your attention to this matter. He said this recently in another post. Who the fuck's he talking to? It's like, this is like a letter you give out to, you're complaining at fucking Walmart or Target or something, or Amazon, and you're like, thank you for this attention. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Like you're trying to, it's just a weird fucking thing to say. And he's done it now twice. He writes, now it's time for peace. After you just fucking bomb somebody when you didn't fucking have to, you got worked by Israel. There's no reason for you to fucking bomb anybody. You know, it's all bullshit, which we know. In this video that you're going to show, I'd show it here, but all the different times they said they were 2 weeks away, because I cover this thing with the video I've already made that you're going to see after this part. I cover how he and Tulsi Gabbard are not on the same page. You know, and Tulsi Gabbard's trying to be a truther in her way, but they just suck at it. And she was trying to talk about the possibility that these, you know, some kind of elite or whatever she called them, these people, are pushing for World War III. Well, here it is, right? You didn't have to get involved here, and we fucked this country over. This is the other part, which I'll talk about later. You know, Iran is the way it is now because of what happened before, and so the fact that he made bombs in Capitol, like what a like micro penis move that is, right? Like, you know, what are you compensating for? That you gotta, you know, like he's got this thing about having these big weapons that have nothing to do with him. Trump was never involved in a military-industrial complex, and he was never involved in the military. And you know, he got out of the military when he should have went to Vietnam. Like Trump should have been a Vietnam guy, but he wasn't, because he got out of it, and you know, because whatever. And I'm not whatever. I don't look down on any of that. I mean, you should try to get out of serving your country, you know, like. But you know, like these people who claim to be pro-military, and then didn't want to do it for themselves, and you know, he was never anything but a fan of our kick-ass military, like as a person, like he liked it because it kicked ass. But you know, and to Trump's credit, his first term, I can say the number one thing that Trump did as a president, he didn't buy into any of these bullshit wars. Now, he could have got out of Afghanistan and should have, but he didn't start any new wars, and I think that pissed off a lot of people, including the neocons. And even though he was very pro-Israel, he wasn't, you know, doing their bidding like he's doing now, even though they were his, you know, they really liked what he was doing with everything else. And he did get out of that Iran deal that would have prevented this thing if they left it intact with Obama. But now, he's bombed somebody for no reason, right? So we've completed our very successful attack on 3 nuclear sites in Iran, and including Fordham, Natanz, and Estevan. All planes are now outside of the Iranian airspace it should be say of the Iranian airspace, outside of the Iran airspace. It's Iranian, you fuck. And it's such a bitch move. He should have came out and gave a public statement. I think he was shitting his pants. I think this really upset him. Because, like I said, I said he was going to have to do this. Like, I don't see any way around on him not doing this, because of all the stuff he wanted to be involved. He wanted to claim victory over Iran. And this was his way. Like, he was jealous of Israel. Plus, Netanyahu, you know, he gets elected because he can work presidents. He's got Trump in his, you know, licking his fucking taint. And so he had to do this. Like, he's just, you know, he's in bed with Israel, like Israel's part of his handlers. And he also wanted credit, and he didn't like how much credit Israel was getting with American weapons and American money. And so they're kicking Iran's ass with the, you know, bombing stuff. But Iran has a massive military. They have more military than Israeli has people. So, you know, this is a whole thing. And then, you know, when Russia gets involved. And a full payload of bombs was dropped on the primary site in Ford now. A full payload, like he's bragging. Like, you know, this is him. You know, I mean, and like it's like he drunk dials. All planes are safely on their way home. Congratulations to our great American warriors. There's nothing fucking more being a pussy than dropping bombs, other than droning, right? Like, if you're going to go kill people, you should have to go kill them, right? And when they get robots, like, you're not going to fucking say our great warriors who have robots or drones. You're sitting in some fucking trailer somewhere and, you know, with no threat to your life whatsoever, killing people. That's a fucking video game. And, you know, these bombers, they own the Iranian airspace. Iran could not shoot down these bombers. They're those stealth bombers. They had no shot at fucking shooting them down. So you can't call that being a warrior, dropping fucking bombs on fucking, people that they have we've already wrecked their country once, right? So, I mean, if you're flying planes and there's aircraft shit going on, or there's fighter jets there to shoot you down, yeah, that's scary as shit, right? So that's like being brave, and that's at least I don't say brave, but you're risking your life. But when you own the airspace and you're just dropping things the dead of night or whatever, when they have already lost all their air defense, it's not, no, I mean, like, don't make it into something fucking courageous. This is a fucking bitch move on your part where you're owned by Israel. All planes are home safely. There's not another military in the world that could have done this. Again, like, this is the fucking line why what was in it for him. Because he knew, and, Netanyahu baited him into this, saying, we have ways of doing it. And then, remember, I showed you that, you'll see that question here. It's in this video. But Netanyahu said, we have ways of doing it, and Trump gets really defensive about it. No, he doesn't. He can't do it. Only we can do that. Only we have the bunker buster. And so that's Trump being fucking Trump. Like, that's Trump really wanting to claim some victory here and say he was the one and they were the ones, and, America was great and he's ready to Trump. And so this is fucking him getting totally worked by Netanyahu. This is not there's not another military in the world that could have done this. Now is the time for peace. So this is what a piece of shit this guy is, right? I mean, it's just fucking, it's grotesque. Fucking grotesque. Waiting for it, because it's fucking coming. Everyone knew he had to do this, right? Okay, so these fucking guys. CNN was last to the table here with MSNBC. And so my wife got a text from, Ben Swan, I think it was. The guy Ben Swan, who was, kind of was I don't know, like a local news person that started covering truther stuff. And they were all the people that were commenting about it. And I looked it up, and the mainstream media didn't even have it yet, which was weird because Trump dropped his Truth Social, and they didn't pay attention to it. Like, they weren't on board. And I'm like, I'm not seeing it, so I'm searching for, like, and I got a headache. There's a whole thing there, too. I'm going to talk about that, my personal reaction to it. So it wasn't anywhere. And then I looked on, on YouTube, and they didn't have anything up yet. And it took like an hour before CNN and MSNBC had anything. Like, they had to bring in their people to cover it. They didn't do the breaking thing with, they had to bring in Rachel Maddow on MSNBC, who doesn't work Sunday nights. And this guy, no one works Sunday nights, right? And so they all had to, or Saturday night, they all had to bring that in. And so when I finally found it on YouTube, it was Fox. And so none of these guys had it. And, he announced it by tweet, which is such a, like, fucking bitch move. And I doubt he's going to be answering questions for a couple days. And it's going to come out whether it's successful or not. And then Trump's going to be limp dick if they still have the facility. And he's going to have to do it again or not or whatever, right? Because he has to be successful. Like, this has to go in a way where he can claim success. That's his only thing. I want to show you Rachel Maddow thing now. So look at Rachel Maddow there. Look at that's the thumbnail they decided to use. Like, they made this thumbnail of Trump and her. And look at that fucking Rachel Maddow. She's got this somber face. Get your somber face out. I mean, just, pathetic. Netanyahu praises Trump after bombs hit Iran site. I'm not going to cover these things. Whatchamacallit, AOC is calling for Trump's impeachment, some dumbass tweet where there's, zero chance of that happening. and these people are, reacting to it, in a political way. But like there's something, fucking more dire about this. Let me show you the Rachel Maddow thing here briefly.
This is MSNBC's ongoing special breaking news coverage. I'm Rachel Maddow. If you're just tuning in, we are following the breaking news that U.S. bombers carried out strikes today at three.
This somber thing that she's doing, right? This dude is getting all somber, and we're wearing black. And
Iranian nuclear sites, one at Natanz, a site that had previously been hit by...
They all love this kind of story. I mean, all the big stars for their networks, the biggest paid people come back, come into work on Saturday night, what they're doing. And as soon as this is going to happen, like as soon as the bombing happened, make sure you call me. I want to be out, they're like, they want to be there for, and this is the videos they're putting up, right? Anderson Cooper and Rachel Maddow, right? They're, it was that one dude for Fox News that hosted the debate that Trump got pissed about or whatever. A couple, 4 years ago, Brett Baer, and it's their big stars. Like they're like, they're number one people there that come in.
Israel and Iran have been trading strikes since Israel's surprise attack last Friday. Israel has already attacked the site at Natanz. Now the United States has done so as well. And
emphasize that, capitalize United States in that statement.
Their nuclear site near Isfahan in Iran, and also, according to the president, the facility called Fordo, which is a deeply buried facility. And that's important tactically because the U.S. military is believed to have essentially unique targeting capacity to hit a site like that. It is a deep underground facility. The United States has essentially developed weapons specifically to target facilities like that one. And so these B-2 bombers that have reportedly carried out these strikes tonight in Iran are aircraft with capacity that no other military in the world really
Nobody else could do this like we do it. Like
Now, common wisdom about this president, about the political movement that he leads, is that he is supposedly isolationist, that he is supposedly anti-war. That has never been exactly right. That's always been kind of a lazy common wisdom.
It wasn't lazy. He didn't, in the first term, this was the thing I praised Trump for. He didn't get us involved in more bullshit wars. And that's another thing. Like, for Trumpers, whoever fucking Trumpers are still watching my channel, the moronic, dumb fuck Trumpers, this is the worst thing. The wars are the worst thing. And I feel more strongly about this than I did about Libya, when we went into Libya under Obama. That was a completely bullshit thing. The Iraq thing was bad because Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11. But there was some, reason for that. Again, this is the neocon stuff, which he's going to get into here. But what happened in Libya was just, that was grotesque. How they manufactured something where he was doing everything they wanted him to do. He gave up all his weapons of mass destruction. He was having public and private partnerships. He was on pace to achieve the Millennium Development Goals, probably one of the only or the only country that was going to do it. These Millennium Development Goals that came out of the UN. It was like income, which he had the highest per capita income in Africa. He took Libya from the world's poorest country to the Africa's poorest country, which made it one of the world's poorest, to the richest country in Africa, in terms of paying people, in terms of human rights, in terms of education. And he was about to achieve all these Millennium Development Goals in 2011 when they bombed him and they killed him. And remember, Hillary Clinton lured him out and said that you can surrender, and they had these guys that they had imported into his country who were like Iraqi military guard guys, they're like ISIS guys, and they sodomized him with a sword with no reason, because they weren't even really angry at him. They were just paid shill. Paid militia guys that were put in there to undermine and destroy his country. And we already know what happened with Iran. Which I'll tell that story again. I think I tell it twice in this video, maybe. We'll get to that in a bit. But Trump didn't buy into all that bullshit for the first 4 years. But now he's, we're on the path to nuclear war. Like, this is where this is going to end. Get into that just a bit.
In less than 6 months back in office, he has threatened military action against Panama, against Canada, against Denmark in order to seize Greenland.
Yeah, remember that?
He has bombed Yemen over and over and over again, and now he appears to have entered the United States military into a war in Iran, something that neoconservatives have thrilled to for, I guess, 2 generations now.
Yeah, this fake emotional reaction, like she cares about people. She didn't call the neocon bullshit out when they created the war in the Ukraine, because Joe Biden had to make a deal with the neocons to get, to rig the election against Trump. And so the neocons were running Biden's foreign policy. And none of these people called that out, right? Because they were, or his senility, which is why Trump is president again. So, this emotional reaction, like, this is a bad thing that's happened. I'm not changing the way I talk about things because, it's just all, I mean, we know we know where America's going, right? Everyone knows it. Like, America's done, right? Just fucking stick a fork in us. Like, we're done. Everyone fucking knows it. And America's, we're not coming back from the economic issues, the social issues more than anything else, this idiocracy, none of this, we're not turning this thing around. Like, fucking, and this is, this is the story and how that happens, which has already happened. Like, America will no longer be America sometime in the near future. And this is how it happens, right? All the things that led up to it, including all of Biden's presidency, Trump's last 2 years of his presidency, and then whatever length of this presidency that he has now. This is where America, ceases to become a world power, and at least the number one world power, and falls. And this is the fall of America, right?
Now, a lot of commentary around the Trump phenomenon and Trump's politics would suggest that he has risen in opposition to the neoconservatives who have advocated for this type of war since essentially the Iranian Revolution in 1979. But since 1979, the U.S. military has not engaged directly with Iran. But Donald Trump has done so tonight. Donald Trump has ordered U.S. military bombing raids on Iran. We are now in war with Iran.
So that was the big statement. See, look, this is her face. That was her big line, because that's what the title of this video is. We're now in war with Iran. That was her moment. That she came in from whatever fucking social thing she was doing. I'm not going to... whatever thing she was doing before she had to be called into work because she got this great news that this big moment that she had to be a part of. We are now in war with Iran. She got to do it. She got to drop that face on everybody. It's very much like that moment when she was talking about Donald Trump being elected. This is not a dream. It's not a nightmare. This is our reality. This is America now. Let me see if I can find that. See when the election night when she announces it. But very similar. This dire warning kind of thing. This is election night 2016.
You're awake, by the way. You're not having a terrible, terrible dream. Also, you're not dead and you haven't gone to hell. This is your life now. This is our election now. This is us. This is our country. It's real.
Very similar. It's very similar type of... more somber with the second thing, with the war in Iran. But, still, this is her somber Donald Trump moments, wearing black as well. Remember, they thought they were going to win that night, though. They all thought Hillary was going to win, and that was the best Donald Trump moment. The best Donald Trump moment that he's delivered in the show. It made me giddy for like a week. Was when all these people came in and thought that Hillary Clinton, they didn't get the memo. They weren't in on it, and so when Hillary Clinton was leading in the polls substantially, And there was like no thought that Trump would ever get elected. And, whatever they thought that the powers that be would never let him get elected, right? And Trump was just it was like Trump didn't even want to get elected. The third debate, Trump just gave up. Like he just gave up. He was like not even fighting back against Hillary Clinton. Like he just was doing this as a publicity stunt. And he couldn't even believe he was doing as well as he was doing, because he came in and Trump is not really a successful person. I mean, he's a great grifter. He's a great salesman of himself to certain levels of dumb fuck people, but never like a successful politician type of thing. Like he came in and it was like a way to promote himself. Trump's always doing self-promotional thing. And then all of a sudden he starts to win and do well in the rallies and enthusiasm. And, and then he's the nominee. And they were picking Jeb Bush, and he just crushed Jeb Bush, low energy Jeb. And like he was all these people were waiting for someone like Trump, which was amazing. Like that he was just doing that well. But then the Hillary thing, and then he had a great line in the second debate where he said, "You'd be in jail right now," and he was working it. But, not serious, didn't have a ground game. The Republican Party wasn't behind him. Fox News wasn't really behind him. Like, they weren't like publicly sabotaging him or anything like that, but they were, definitely, the Republican Party was like, who's this guy? Because he was still an outsider to them. He used to be a Democrat in 2009, only 7 years before. And so he switched over and was never, did anything politically. And he crushed all their dopey candidates, and they were all pissed about that. And then he was saying things, he was obnoxious and whatever. And so nobody thought he was going to win going into it, but like fucking people who were going to his rallies and saw the enthusiasm and whatever. And these guys didn't know. Rachel Maddow didn't know. And so that night was great. That was the best Trump moment, because, it was an anti-establishment fucking nightmare of a person who didn't act presidential and didn't respect American politics and policies, and just it's the guy who's a failure on every level, business-wise, gone bankrupt 6 times, comes in and says he knows better than all the fucking long-standing Washington, D.C. politicians and all these media pundits who were all like, he's not going to get elected because they figured the people that ran the system wouldn't allow it. The people that, told them to go out there and shill for Hillary. And all of a sudden, they stab these guys and they totally, blindside these motherfuckers. And they were all, crying and shit, right? They couldn't believe it. And as the night went on and Trump started winning some of the swing states, and they're like, holy shit, he has a chance to win. How's this even fucking possible? Like, why is it, why are you even doing this? Like, it should be over. And it was like one of these things that was like, I'm like, oh my God, everyone's like, hey, it looks like he's going to win. Like, it's fucking, and they were like in shock. That was the big night. That was Trump's big night. Now, this is, up to this point, Trump's most infamous fucking bad night. The summer solstice of 2025, when he started World War III. He got fucking baited into it by his fucking owner, by Netanyahu, who's Trump's his taint licker. And fucking, now we're wherever we end up, it started here. Of course, it started years ago, but this is, this is a pivotal moment. So, I just want to talk about my personal reaction, which was I had a really bad day health-wise yesterday, which may or may not be connected to this thing. If it is, then this thing's probably fucked. 2 weeks before 9/11 happened, I was working at an outpatient clinic that was fucked. It was just, I was a clinician, so I had a master's degree in counseling. And I worked for they have these outpatient clinics. I worked for one when I was doing my internship, and another one here. And you have to book so many hours, usually poor people with Medicaid. This place was for mostly counseling kids. And, that was the number one thing. And because people would bring their kids in to get ADHD medication. And you had to book so many counseling hours. And you really had to have a business side. To be successful, you had to have a business side. And I just don't have that. And most counselors don't. Most people go into counseling so they don't have to deal with business. But to be successful, in anything in America, and very much so with counseling, you have to have a business side. And you had to figure out ways to manipulate the system to make enough hours, bookable hours, so that you would be able to keep your job. And 70 or 80% of the clinicians couldn't do that because there weren't enough available hours out there. It wasn't available clients, right? You could do intakes, where you do psychological assessments, but it wasn't really there wasn't enough people to do that, and everybody wanted to do those because you booked 4 hours, so like you had to book 28 hours or so of time with clients, and there just wasn't enough clients. And people who did it, like there's one guy came in and he was young, and he was booking over 28, like right off the bat. He was good at it, but he was working 60 hours. He came in when I was on my way out because what happens is they start pressuring you, and why can't you book hours? And they make you feel like it's your fault. And I talked to a few women that were there longer than I was, and they were like, this is totally rigged system. And they make you feel bad about it. Then they take your vacation time. They just find ways to, and then they make you part-time. And they just like find ways to blame you for, not having enough hours when there isn't enough available. There isn't enough clients to come in. And it's a way they screw you out of this money. And the money that they're getting is government money that's being paid to poor people to have Medicare and Medicaid. And so, older people and poor, young people, poor people. And which they would pay $40 for an individual session. And the thing was that people would bring their kids in to see the psychiatrist that came in once a month, and they had to see him every month. So that was, guaranteed money for the place. And there's a psychiatrist on staff in all these places. I worked in a number of different types of facilities, and they were the ones that would prescribe meds. And all the parents want their kids on meds, but they didn't give a shit about the therapy. And so the parents were supposed to bring their kids back in, but many times they were poor and they were like, on drugs or just, they didn't have a high level of consciousness and they didn't really believe in therapy. So they bring their kid in on the day that the psychiatrist was there, and everybody would have a full caseload. Everyone would have, a full day of work because the psychiatrist was in, and all these clients would come in that day. And then they would do therapy that one day a month, but that was it. And they would skip the rest of their appointments. And the whole thing was fucked, right? And, I was on my way out when it happened. And there's a young girl that just started, and I really wasn't on the internet that much. And, young girl fresh out of college. And we were, friendly or whatever it was. And 9/11 happened. And for 2 weeks before it happened, I felt completely unsettled. I was having weird dreams. I felt like something was foreboding, like I felt weird. I was like, something bad was going to happen. I'm not really like a psychic person, but, you become more sensitive as you do the Sajmark meditation. And I always had something, right? Because, whatever. Anybody who has a predisposition towards spirituality has sensitivity and, has some predictive things or whatever it is, right? Some psychic kind of stuff. And, this had happened before in my life where I felt like something's coming, and it's happened a lot since then, even more so, that I felt like something was coming. And, like I felt this way about Libya too. Like I just felt like it was just bad. Like it was just, I felt not so much that something consequential was going to come out of it, but this was something bad that had happened. And when 9/11 happened, I was relatively prepared for it. Like I didn't feel bad that day. I wasn't freaked out. Like, and this girl comes up and she's like, "You've seen what's happening?" Because she was on the internet, because she was some young person who was already, had a cell phone, all those things, which I didn't have. And she was like, "There's just things are happening." And everyone at work turned their things on, their TVs and whatever. And they were like, "Well, don't go home in case your clients want to come in." I'm like, my clients the clients aren't going to come in here. It's not this kind of place, right? And so I went home to be with my family, but it was like, I already knew about 2 weeks ahead of time. So I've had these reactions to things. And yesterday I started developing a headache. And my wife and I were going for a walk, and she was asking about the whole Operation Ajax thing, which I've talked about here quite a bit. And, you know, and I said, well, you know, this is a fucked up thing because of British Petroleum, you know, this BP. They went into Iran, and she brought up the that picture she sent me from Dinesh D'Souza saying, this is before the bombing happened. And she said that Iran, you know, that Iran was very progressive. I'm like, yeah, Iran was very Western. It was a moderate country, and their leader most of the day was a very moderate guy. It's a kind of government. It was a democracy. And it was, you know, they have ancient culture there, the Persian culture, ancient artifacts. I mean, it's a rich place in various ways. And, you know, the Iranian people, sophisticated language, you know, Farsi, I mean, has a nice, you know, and they have a sophisticated culture. And they were doing great. They weren't a problem at all. They were not, they were one of the, you know, better, and they weren't there's, you know, there's still monarchies in the, you know, the Arab world, you know, the royal families, and they were already beyond that shit, right? And so they were probably like the best country in the Middle East. And then they elected this guy Mossadegh, and he was like, well, look, you guys are getting 80% of the profits, 80% of the, you know, the business from the oil business. It was split 80-20, right? Iran was only getting 20% of their own oil. And British Petroleum's like, well, yeah, that's because we built your oil rigs and all that stuff. And they're like, no, you know, fucking, we want 50%. Or we're going to just kick you out and do it ourselves. And British Petroleum ran like a bunch of bitches to America and said, look, they're trying to steal our oil money. And the CIA came in and fucking went after this guy, who was a very popular, moderate leader. And they did regime change, which never fucking works. And they now have admitted this and apologized for it in Operation Ajax, right? And so that's how Iran was wrecked. And they brought in the bloodthirsty Shah, who was just like, you wearing gold suits, and the Shah of Iran, right? This is what I grew up with. And that led to the fall of the Shah, who had to leave because everyone fucking hated him in Iran because he was a puppet leader. And he was like very, you know, wealthy. I mean, it's like, you know, one of those things where his wife had, you know, like Imelda Marcos had those closet full of shoes. She had like, you know, 2,000 pairs of shoes or something like crazy like that, right? This kind of stuff, you know, hundreds of pairs of shoes or whatever it was. And like that kind of, you know, opulence when the country's suffering. And so then they had this religious uprising and the Ayatollah and all these things. And they, you know, burned down the American embassy and they took the hostages, you know, that all stuff, right? But it was America that fucked this country over. And they've had the shitty government ever since, a theocracy. And, you know, because we did regime change, which doesn't fucking work. Same thing's happening in Libya now, in Iraq, in Afghanistan. When we come in and we do, you know, there's this, you know, how you know, governments kill countries. This is a whole thing. You can watch these. There's a book written by this guy who called himself, you know, whatever it was, this political assassin or whatever they did. They would come in and they would take these governments over. And they had ways of doing it. They would create political unrest. They would, you know, undermine the leader in various ways. Get, you know, create opposition, pay people to create an opposition. And they would do economic sanctions or some, you know, way of hurting the country economically. And if that didn't work, they bring in the jackals and assassinate the guy. And they did this over and over again. Every time America did it, the country fucking was way worse. Because people have a right to rule themselves in whatever capacity. And when a foreign government comes in, it happened with the British in India, and when they occupied these places and put in these, you know, these British Rajas, it doesn't work, right? You can't put puppets in there and expect that people are going to gravitate to them. Like, imagine if somebody came in, conquered America, and put some puppet ruler that put Hillary Clinton in and nobody liked her. And, you know, and everyone knows she's a puppet. What do you think the Americans would be like? So it doesn't work, right? And the country really suffers. And so, you know, I was talking to my wife about that, and I started, you know, get a headache. I was like fighting off a headache in the afternoon, and I was like, it was just like I get these migraines, you know, twice a month, once a month, whatever. And, sometimes they start coming on the headache and it just ends up going. I do certain things to help get rid of it. And, it also involves me being nauseous. Like headaches are usually gut related where, there's also a nervous system aspect to the migraines. But the headache got progressively worse, and I started having heart palpitations, which I have very, infrequently now, which, I wasn't having for about 6 months, but it was a post-COVID thing. After I had COVID, I had a regular heartbeat, and I started having like the heart issue kind of thing, so where my heart was like fluttering a little bit, and usually that wouldn't happen the same time of a migraine. And then I started to feel really bad. And sometimes when I have migraines, it affects my nervous system. It's like I get chills. Sometimes I get the aura where I see lights, my vision's impaired. That didn't happen, but my nervous system was bothering me. I just felt out of sorts. And, occasionally because I talk for about 2 hours a day every day here. And my voice has issues, right? And my throat gets sore. Once in a while I have this pain in my throat and it makes me cough and I have trouble breathing because I cough so hard. And it's really gross. It sucks, right? It sucks. But it doesn't happen frequently. And all these things were happening. Like my whole body was like glitching out. And then we heard about the Iranian thing. And I just felt worse. My headache got worse. I went to bed early. I was just laying in bed, just fucking miserable. And it was like my whole body was fucking going against me in some way. Like everything was bad. That every issue that I have fairly infrequently was happening all at once. And my headache got really bad. And finally I went to sleep. I meditated for a bit, and that sort of calmed me down, and I fell asleep. I went to bed really early. And then I was up, and I woke up a bunch of times, and my head was bothering me, and and I'm really nauseous. And sometimes I'll like dry heave, and that'll make me feel better. But I was actually throwing up, like I felt like that. That almost never happens in migraine. And I was bloated, and when I'm bloated, a lot of people are having this issue and they don't realize it. I found a video where this doctor brought in various gut doctors, and they talked about how bloating happens from COVID and the vax, and it puts pressure on the heart. And a lot of people having heart issues is because of when your stomach bloats, it puts pressure on that whole your chest area. And I had a lot of bloating when I had COVID, and my wife had something like a belly issue, like she was bloating like a couple days ago, and my stomach was like swelled. I didn't have anything to eat. It's just I went to bed without eating anything, which usually makes it hard for me to go to sleep. But so I'm sitting there, just a mess, right? And then as I fell asleep a little bit, everything got better, but the headache, which is still a little bit lingering. And it kind of went over the top when I found out that Trump had bombed Iran. And so I feel like it's connected to that. And if it is, that's a bad sign. And I'm not sure if other people are having those kind of reactions, like something, and I'm not triggered by it, like personally, because, I've had these whispers of the brighter world prophecies that are talking about all these things happening, right? The, nuclear war, that sometime in the next 6 to 8 months, there's going to be the start of a nuclear war. I mean, that's the basic prophecy. That's the number one prophecy. And so I knew these things were going to start to unfold. And I knew these things, based in that, my belief that those things are going to happen, right? In a professorial way. And I know America has to come down. I know, if everything that I've seen, I know that the world economy and these things, we're going in the wrong direction. And for a divine, this is the bad thing we have to go through for a divine renaissance, a spiritual renaissance on the other side. And that's all part of my belief system. So I'm not, I feel pretty much detached from Trump, and when I don't cover these things, they don't affect me. And yet I had this physical reaction where I was like sitting there going, my body's completely glitching out. On the night, on the solstice night, and I had a pretty good day. I was working outside until the headache kicked in. And, then I started to feel bad and then whatever. But, this is a bad thing. And it's the beginning. It's the beginning of something worse. A lot of the things Trump has done, if you are a world power person, it's just when a king or an emperor starts fucking getting irrational, not working with other countries, trying to bully everybody, and then everyone's like, we got to take this motherfucker down. The country, America and Trump. And when your country produces a piece of shit like Trump, and, they probably felt this way somewhat with Biden, too, who was senile and had, like America is, what we're producing is leadership in a global situation, and how obnoxious Americans are, and how, everything about America, like everyone's like, we've got to take these guys down. Like that's what's up right now. So the headache's mostly gone, but I'm still feeling like the problem with my migraines. The number one reason for a migraine is you have low serotonin, which is created in your gut, right? So that's why there's a gut really. And so when you feel nauseous, but it's just that it's like a depressed feeling. There's I also felt irritable. I was very irritable last night and sort of angry, which just doesn't happen even with the migraines. But the lack of serotonin makes it feel like, things I usually enjoy doing, I don't enjoy. Like there's no joy. There's no happiness. I get the migraine. Like it's aside from the pain is usually not that bad anymore. But it's the feeling I have, like the condition. When you have low serotonin, it just sucks. And that's, like usually the day after the migraine, when it gets better, it hasn't kicked in yet. I have higher levels of serotonin than usual. It's like sort of a day of bliss, right? But so the low serotonin, the glitching out, my nervous system bothering me, all the other issues I was having, the bloating and things. And, I'm like, this is not good. And I'm thinking about what just happened with Trump, this is, the whole thing. So anyways, that was my initial reaction. So I'm sure I'll be covering this more. And I don't know if I'm going to make a video today or whatever. We'll see how it goes. But anyways, I made a video yesterday. Here's, that kind of leads into this. Kind of interesting. So here's the video I made yesterday, and I'll cover this, in the next couple days. Okay, so Trump made a statement here. I had this video rendering right now, but I'm going to add this to it.
A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise.
Okay, so just an absolute tool. Look at these 3 fucking stooges behind him. Just really bad, right? It is horrible. Now, I've never heard those names before, like last week, or whenever they started talking about America bombing Fordow. I haven't heard the other ones. And so, I do this as a job. I watch the news quite a bit, make fun of it, and, I'm more informed than the average person. And so he's making it sound like we've heard those names for years. They could have built a bomb in 1984, according to Israel. And then multiple times since then, they've made these announcements. They're a couple weeks away. They've chose not to build a bomb. Unless they have them and no one knows about it, that's whatever it is. And so there was some nuclear inspection going under the Obama plan that Trump got rid of. But this wasn't desperate, right? Like this is just Trump wanting to claim some victory in the Iranian situation because he was jealous of Netanyahu and Israel, and then all the other reasons he had to do this because of Israel owning him and being one of his handlers. But it's just, it's an embarrassment. He's an fucking embarrassment.
Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight I can report...
Oh, my God. Just, if Israel didn't punk you on your birthday and unilaterally attacked Iran, this wouldn't be happening because you were in negotiation with them. And there was no reason to drop bombs on them. There just wasn't. Israel created a crisis here. If the official story is whatever the official story is. Like it's, whatever is happening is always, you can always question it being just part of a staged show, whatever. But in terms of the staged show, Israel came in and started bombing Iran on your birthday and ruining your military parade and punking you and not allowing you to even, you're not asking you for permission. And they started doing all this stuff, and you had no choice but to back them, because that's been your policy all along. And Iran didn't do anything. They didn't do anything to provoke this. They weren't doing anything, that would have made this happen. Or Israel's on a, multi-front war right now. They're doing, I want to call it the thing in Gaza war. It's a war of crimes, but they're doing the genocide and ethnic cleansing in Gaza and the West Bank. They've targeted the leader in Syria and assassinated the president in Syria, and now they're going after Iran. And you were bombing the Houthis. So, like, you guys are bombing the shit out of people all in that region who are, if you look at the body count, Muslims have lost a lot more people in that region than Jews or Americans, right? Than Israelis and Americans. And so the Muslims, in terms of 1.5 million in Iraq, and then the 200,000 in Libya, and then just this whole area. And these people are getting killed by people who are messing around with their, political sovereignty, mostly unprovoked. All those bullshit wars, the 9/11 bullshit wars, all these things, false flags, and all the rest of it, right? And this guy, has a thing called Truth Social, so.
To the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success.
Spectacular. They were fucking spectacular military success. Iran has claimed they moved their nuclear materials out of Fordham, which would mean that it wasn't a success because they didn't get rid of the materials, and they've moved them to some other location, right? And if they don't have intelligence of where that is, then they can't even get them. It's a huge country. So, of course this is what he's going to say. Like, this is his whole reason for doing it.
That the strikes were a spectacular military success.
Spectacular.
Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
Boom.
Iran, the bully of the Middle East.
Okay, America is the biggest bully of the world. It just is. And Israel is our, little manipulative bully friend that, gets America into fights, So, but this is, this was not Iran bullying these other countries, right? I mean, just like him talking about stand up to a bully, he's a bully, right? He's a bitch ass, punk ass motherfucker, right? That, doesn't fight his own battles, didn't go into the military himself, and is, bullies people in business, bullies people in his personal life, and then bullies people as a president, like, and when it starts going south for America, when America starts losing, and things start going south economically and in all these different ways, he's just going to come out and lie and pretend that everything's going great, and he's going to hide himself away like he did on January 6th. The guy couldn't be seen; he didn't show his face, and didn't know what to do till like a day later. And when they start punking him like that, and he realizes he's not the hero in the story, and all these things he does are going to backfire, and they turn the narrative against him, the guy's just not going to be there. Like, he's not going to stand up and take responsibility. Like, all he can do is, claim success and then go bankrupt. Like, that's Trump's MO, right?
Now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. They have been killing our people.
Are you serious? That's what this is about? Those lame-ass chantings?
Blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roadside bombs. That was their specialty. We lost over 1,000 people, and hundreds of thousands throughout the Middle East and around the world have died as a direct result of their hate. In particular, so many were killed by their general, Qasem Soleimani. I decided a long time ago that I would not let this happen. It will not continue. I want to thank and congratulate Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu.
Bibi.
We worked as a team like perhaps no team has ever worked before.
Yeah, they fucking didn't conclude you in the... You mean when they bombed people and took the news headlines away from your shitty parade that fucking failed, and your birthday when you walked out early, when the fireworks were going off, when real fireworks were going off in Iran? Remember that? Was he working with a team with you then? Like, now he's like trying to claim... This is a great moment.
And we've gone a long way to erasing this horrible threat to Israel. I want to thank the Israeli military for the wonderful job they've done. And
Wait, this has nothing to do with America. I mean, the Iranians, for whatever they say, death to America threats, that's not anything to do with America, right? And he's, admitting it here, erasing this threat to Israel. Like our whole life is our whole existence is predicated on protecting Israel. More and more American people not only don't want that, they want to see the other thing happen, right? And so, we're tired of paying for this and blood and treasure. And, this is, the whole Middle East, there's the oil factor, and that's something that has American interests. And again, this is all evil empire shit, right? It all's evil empire shit, like the whole petrodollar. But the stuff with Israel has nothing to do with America. And, what is Israel doing for me? What is it doing for you? Like, what is the relationship doing for the average American, right?
Importantly, I want to congratulate the great American patriots who flew those magnificent machines tonight.
Magnificent they were.
And all of the United States.
Look at them all nodding their heads.
Military on an operation the likes of which the world has not seen in many, many decades. Hopefully, we will no longer need their services in this capacity. I hope that's so. I also want to congratulate the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Raisin Kane,
Raisin Kane, that guy.
Spectacular general.
He's spectacular. Magnificent and spectacular. That's what happened.
All of the brilliant military minds involved in this attack. With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days. Remember, there are many targets left. Tonight's was the most difficult of them all, by far, and perhaps the most lethal. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed.
So peace means that they show their belly and they completely give into everything that Trump's bullying them into, right? Unprovoked fucking attack. Illegal. This is against the fucking UN stuff, all this stuff, right? The UN is like, Israel hates the UN. And, for lots of reasons, but without the UN, they wouldn't exist. UN divided the fucking Palestine into whatever is it today, right? And turned a blind eye to the bullshit illegal wars that Israel's done over the years. They're always they're always the aggressor, right? And so,
speed and skill. Most of them can be taken out in a matter of minutes. There's no military in the world that could have done what we did tonight. Not even close.
Not even close. We're the fucking best.
Never been a military that could do what took place just a little while ago.
Well, no, we're the best in the world. We're the best people. We got the best. Like, this is this pathetic narcissism. Like, this isn't, presidential. This isn't about you being able to brag about fucking your military capabilities when you had nothing in creating them or planning them or doing any of these things, right? This was all fucking done by other people when you were forced into this situation. And he wants to, he wants to paint Trump on these bombs, like paint big giant Trump letters on the bombs. This is like Trump bombs.
Tomorrow, General Kane, Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth will have a press conference at 8 a.m. at the Pentagon. And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God. I want to just say we love you, God, and we love.
Oh my God, are you serious? I want to thank God. Like the way the fucking
Pentagon, and I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God. I want to just say we love you, God, and we love our great military. Protect them.
Oh my God, fucking nightmare! Don't ever fucking put those two words together again, you piece of shit, right? This was totally ungodly. Only in the sense that God wants America destroyed. That the events that are going to unfold because of this piece of shit, he's doing God's work in the sense that he's taking down an empire that is blocking people's spiritual revolution. Spiritual evolution, spiritual renaissance. There's that. Like, he's doing God's work unknowingly. But to pretend that this thing had anything to do with God,
God bless the Middle East, God bless Israel, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
That was horrible. Oh my God, that was horrible. So, okay. So, I realized what my video was about yesterday because all this stuff happened. I had the health crisis and all that. And it was entitled, they always lie us into war. They always, tell lie, whatever it is, something like that. It's in the title now. I'm going to keep it in the title. And I cover, this thing with Nasira, whatever her name is, who this girl who pretended there was incubators, and it's a whole thing. And then the thing happened here. And, this is another example with Trump talking his bullshit. People don't want to go to war. Some people are warlike. The Vikings had this time, whatever, some period of time where people are very warlike. But, in general, war is bad for people because you have to send your sons and now your daughters and now you're non-binary, like, oh, you got to send your youth over to war now, whoever it is, your kids. And, war sometimes comes to you, right? So people don't like war. And the powers that be have to find ways to motivate people into war, right? They have to find reasons to motivate people into war. And there's no real reason here to motivate people into war. Biden did a not so good job of trying to get support for the Ukrainians. And you had people in the Democratic Party and some Republicans putting up Ukrainian flags. You see that in places. Like, remember that bullshit, right? And, there's anti-Russian sentiment and all these types of things. But, in general, people are tired of the wars in the Middle East, all those wars that happen. And these kids growing up today, they're not playing sports and they're not, they do a lot of war game stuff on computers. And, when there's drones to fight, that'll be something different. But it's hard to get people to motivate, to have the war stuff. I covered this on my other channel, Apocalypse Now. A video about some guy, the guy who they claim to be the godfather of AI, saying they're working on AI-operated drones to fight wars, right? Which will be, the end all. Where drones are killing people, right? So, not drones, robots. Like, it'll be robots, armed robots going out, and will be hard to kill. The robots will be harder to kill with, they'll be bulletproof or whatever else. And, they'll be killing people, right? And civilians. But even then, people have some humanity. Like, there's people in Israel who are very upset by the way the Palestinian people have been treated for years. There's groups, there's these things on Facebook, people from Israel who are, protesting their government's treatment of the Palestinian people. But like I said, one of his good qualities during his first term is he didn't feed into these bullshit wars. But he has, he's had a hard-on for Iran, as have the neocons and certainly Israel. And this was inevitable. They've been going after Iran for a very long time. Remember when Wesley Clark went into the Pentagon right after 9/11, and one of his, he was a former chief of staff, and one of his former employees said, this is really bad. And he said they're going after 7 countries in 5 years. And, the countries that they got, Iraq and Afghanistan, they did something now, like Egypt, they did like a military thing. Then they did Libya. They're going to do the Sudan, and they're going to do Somalia. They're going to do Syria. And the Russians blocked that. Obama tried to go into Syria. And then Iran was the big one. Iran was always the blue chip. Like, Iran is the most resource rich. There's just something special about that country in terms of its location and everything else. And they want access to it after, fucking that up years and years ago, as I've demonstrated and talked about over and over again. But, here's Trump coming in and not selling this because, there's no real reason for this. It was not an urgent matter. He got baited into it by his fucking puny little ego and his puny little, mushroom, all these things. It is, inability to be a human being here. And it's just all lies, right? This is everything he said there was lies. Like, other than the, technical stuff about where these nuclear facilities were supposedly there, or the fact that they dropped bombs, everything else was just, adjectives and exaggeration and all these things. And eventually this is going to, we don't want war. Nobody's, and the people who are Trumpers, a good half of them are split on this. And as it develops, whatever these people say, Tucker Carlson and these other people that are, Trumpers that are against this, and, the inevitability of a split here. Like, Trump's going to be all alone on this stuff at some point, especially when things go south. But anyways, here's the video I did yesterday, which talks about, extensively about lying and how, people have to be manipulated and lied into war. Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Today is Saturday the 21st, the solstice, longest day of the year. So we got Gumby Joe looking gray, Mika looking dudeish. There's this thing that happened. Well, let's watch this here.
All right, our top story this morning, Israel is vowing to intensify its attacks after an Iranian missile plunged into a southern Israeli hospital earlier today. Jonathan.
Yeah, and back in Washington, President Trump is still considering his next steps as the conflict overseas enters its 7th day. We've got 2 reports for you now, starting with NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel.
Dozens of Iranian ballistic missiles rained down across Israel this morning. Sirens wailed as Israeli air defense systems sprung into action. But at least 4 of Iran's powerful missiles made it through.
They got 4 through.
The Soroka Hospital in Beersheba in southern Israel took a direct hit, according to Israeli officials. The impact captured on a cell phone video. Inside, staff and security moved to evacuate patients and search for injured, with sections of the ceiling on the floor. Israel's defense minister called it a war crime, and Prime Minister Netanyahu saying, "We will exact the full price from the tyrants in Tehran."
Okay, so, they did horrible things to hospitals in Palestine. And, all this stuff, which we know about. But this is a long-standing, I've showed you the video with Obama and other people saying somebody fainted in the audience. And these hospitals are one of the things. Hospitals where there might be sick kids. It's one of the big victim consciousness things we've seen over the years. We'll get back to that in a bit. I'll share that one with the Iraqi hospitals and incubators and things, right? But, Israel is committing a genocide in Palestine, right? And the victim consciousness coming out of Israel and, the Jewish community, always bringing it back to the Holocaust and these things. They were the aggressors. Iran was no closer to a nuclear weapon than they've been, according to this guy himself, which I've shown the clips before. I got that little compilation I just showed. I'm not going to do it here now. But they've been talking about this for years, that Iran is 2 weeks away, or they have the ability, and that they can't let that happen, and all the things I've been covering. And they're spending $256 million a day with this Iron Dome, which America is going to have to pay for. Like, we're paying for this right now. Like, we're struggling in various ways, and they want to get us into probably would be $1 trillion war. So it's something that they started without Trump's permission, and Trump's just going along with it.
There were no deaths reported, but several injured. Iran said it was aiming for a military site near the hospital. Another missile exploded in Ramat Gan outside Tel Aviv, hitting a business district. And more buildings in nearby Holon. Search and rescue teams arriving quickly.
We have 5 buildings that were hit by the missile. We have one which is the main building and all the other ones surrounding it.
Israel is continuing its strikes across Iran to pick apart the country's military, destroying these Iranian helicopters and missile launchers and nuclear sites. But some nuclear facilities are buried so deeply only American bunker busters can reach them.
Only bunker busters?
Yuli Edelstein chairs the Israeli Parliament's Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee.
Is the main issue this super bomb that the United States possesses? Is that really the main capacity that the U.S. has that Israel would like to have?
In dry military terms, the answer would be yes. They have the capacity with less effort to get rid of one of the Iranian nuclear sites. We are not saying that we won't try to find our own ways to deal with that. With the United States, it could be much easier and faster.
This morning, President Trump remains publicly undecided on whether to order the U.S. military to join Israel's bombardment of Iran.
I may do it, I may not do it.
Telling reporters late Wednesday he's made no final decision on U.S. strikes.
I like to make the final decision 1 second before it's due, because things change.
Because things change right the second before I do it. I'm a last second guy.
I mean, especially with war.
And explaining how he'll arrive at what may be a presidency-defining conclusion.
Well, I don't want to get involved either, but I've been saying for 20 years, maybe longer, that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. And I think they were a few weeks away from having one.
But the United States...
Yeah, so, I mean, we've heard this before. Like the bullshit, right?
Its own intelligence agencies maintain that Iran has not made a decision to rush towards building an atomic bomb, according to the top Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee and a source with knowledge of the matter. Overnight, Iran's deputy foreign minister responding to the prospect of an attack from the U.S.
We will do whatever necessary to protect our people and our interests. We have no choice but to retaliate wherever we find the targets necessary to be acted upon.
Israel's airstrikes on Iran have likely already set back the country's nuclear program by a few months, according to two sources with knowledge of the matter. The president huddling with advisors in the Situation Room for a second straight day, and earlier suggesting to reporters he'd given Iran an ultimatum and that the window for a negotiated peace was closing.
Maybe you could call it the ultimate ultimatum, right?
What a fucking tool. I mean, he's just such a fucking tool. You could maybe call it the ultimate ultimatum. I mean, just, the grifted, he's just such a fucking piece of shit, lying, grifting motherfucker. You might be able to call it the ultimate ultimatum. When I give an ultimatum, it's better than any other ultimatum given in history. I have the best ultimatums. I've given them an ultimatum, and they won't listen to the ultimatum. That's the fucking made them. And so, his needing to be at the center of attention, his needing to be a part of the victory, his needing to, not wanting to fail and get blamed for something, like all these things, pushing it out a couple weeks. He's just a piece of shit on every level. Something. Me there.
As the Pentagon moves a second and third aircraft carrier strike group towards the region in response to the ongoing conflict, lawmakers deeply divided on the wisdom of actively joining Israel's attacks on Iran in any capacity, a decision they can influence, but only the president will make.
The American people did not vote last November to be dragged into one more endless war in the Middle East.
So either you want them to have a nuclear weapon or you don't.
Or you don't. If you don't, then you want to spend $1 trillion on and not, give it to Israel, which I would like to do.
You don't. If diplomacy fails, you use force.
NBC News senior White House correspondent Garrett Haake with that report. Joining us now, Politics Bureau Chief and senior political columnist at Politico, Jonathan
This fucking guy with the
Martin, and political strategist and former advisor.
Okay, so, morning, Joe. So that's the first piece about the hospital, right? So I turned on the news and there was a guy from Israel there laying it on thick about the fucking hospital and how Iran was horrible and this was a war crime and, this is, we can't allow these kind of things to happen. How is the worst, And some years ago, a guy from Israel showed up on my channel. And he was like, his thumbnail had like he was in a suit and he was praising me in various ways, almost like the AI does. And, talking about where he was from. And then, I did my series on the big event in 2001. And the third installment, I talked about Israel's possible involvement. And the guy was just this paid shill, and he was trying to use guilt and all these things. And I thought, I expected more of you. And, it was clearly somebody was hired to put out disinformation, which they've hired. We now know that they were paying shekels to various people in the You know, not just some truthers got this, and then other people who are influencers on the internet. They're paying money for them to take Israel's side. Of course, I showed you that blonde, you know, Barbie Instagooler who was just so greasy about her support for Israel, and then, you know, just misrepresenting the truth. You know, and the problem here is something that I talk about quite significantly. I mean, quite often, is just being consistent. You know, if you're against the behavior in all forms. It's not okay to bomb and really bomb a fucking hospital in Pakistan, in Palestine, in the Gaza Strip, and say, oh wow, there were some Hamas holes underneath it, and you know all the devastation they've done to that region. I mean, it's a genocide. It's just, you know, it's more than just the deaths, which is 20,000 children and up to 40 to 50,000 people there. And, you know, it's the suffering and it's the ethnic cleansing and all the rest of it, right? And if you're going to do that, then don't whine about shit being done to you. Like, you know, and that's the same for America. You know, we have wreaked havoc all over the world, and when it comes back to us, you know, people are going to feel like it's unfair, but it's, you know, we're all complicit because it's our government doing it, and very few people give a shit. We go bomb some other country. I mean, really care. Like, you know, all right, whatever. And it's nothing we can do about it, and it's just whatever. It seems fake to us, but I mean, it's not like we're there and they have, you know. But it's all based in media manipulation. And so there was this. Well, let me just show you this here.
Well, a national day of mourning has been declared following the death of former President George H.W. Bush, who died Friday at the age of 94. The post office and other federal agencies.
Let's move it forward here.
We continue now to look back at the legacy of the 41st president. Bush only served one term in the Oval Office, but the blowback from his 1991 invasion of Iraq is still being felt today. Although the Gulf War technically ended in February 1991, the U.S. war on Iraq would continue for decades, first in the form of devastating sanctions, and then in the 2003 invasion launched by George H.W. Bush's son, George W. Bush. Thousands of U.S. troops and contractors remain in Iraq today.
We look back now at a largely forgotten aspect of Bush's war in Iraq, the vast domestic propaganda campaign that occurred in the United States before the invasion began. The story centers on a young Kuwaiti woman named Nayira. On October 10th, 1990, the 15-year-old girl gave riveting testimony before Congress about the horrors inside Kuwait after Iraq invaded.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Nayira, and I just came out of Kuwait. My sister, with my 5-day-old nephew, traveled across the desert to safety. There was no milk available for the baby in Kuwait. They barely escaped when their car was stuck in the desert sand, and help came from Saudi Arabia. I stayed behind and wanted to do something for my country.
She did. She stayed. She was a stay behind her. She wanna help out.
It's the second week after an invasion. I volunteered at the Al-Adan hospital with 12 other women who wanted to help as well. I was the youngest volunteer. The other women were from 20 to 30 years old. While I was there, I saw the Iraqi soldiers come into the hospital with guns. They took the babies out of the incubators, and left the children to die on the cold floor.
You know, there's a big market for incubators in Iraq. I mean, to be fair, they get a high price for incubators, and so they took the babies out of the incubators because they're going to take them all the way back to Iraq, and they're quite valuable there. And they said, like Saddam Hussein said, whatever you do, make sure you get the incubators. when you go in, if you find a hospital, take the incubators. If there are babies in them, well, just too bad, because we need them here. Don't forget to grab as many incubators as possible.
It was horrifying. I could not help but think of my nephew.
Naira's testimony was rebroadcast across the country and marked a turning point in public opinion on going to war. President George H.W. Bush repeatedly cited her claims.
They had kids in incubators, and they were thrown out of the incubators so that
Kids. They had kids in there. They're like 5, 6.
Could be systematically dismantled.
3 months after Naira testified, President George H.W. Bush launched the invasion of Iraq. But it turned out Naira's claims weren't true. No human rights group...
No way. I mean, she was crying. Didn't you see her cry? There's no way.
...or news outlet could confirm what she said. It also turned out Naira was not just any Kuwaiti teenager. She was the daughter of the Kuwaiti ambassador to the United States, Saad Nasir al-Sabah. She had been coached by the public relations firm Hill & Knowlton, which was working for the Kuwaiti government. We're joined now by the journalist who first revealed Naira's identity. Rick MacArthur, the president and publisher of Harper's Magazine, the author of the book Second Front.
You know, so like this is the kind of greasy shit they do. And hospitals are a big part of that, right? Whenever they hit a hospital, right? But, you know, when Israel bombed the hospital and Pakistan leveled the thing, you know, according to the news, it's barely covered. And certainly not like this, right? So, you know, I mean, all these things are very suspect. How manipulative they are. And nobody gives a shit anymore, right? It's like, you don't even need to do propaganda because there's no resistance. You know, Trump's going to do whatever he does and he'll suffer politically. It's the big thing is he's got MAGA people who are firmly against this, Tucker Carlson, other people. And so, you know, this is what's up. Like, this is what's happening. But, you know, the incubator, they took the incubators. So I just want to, I'm editing. I want to add something to this. Because, you know, I made fun of it, but I want to make this fucking blatantly clear. Why in the world would they take incubators, right? Now, you can see that there's monstrous things that are done. But the reason that Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait was for the oil and whatever else. It wasn't like just wanting to kill babies in incubators, right? And so, you know, human beings all have the same sort of makeup with, you know, there's going to be some sociopaths and some people who are just horrible. And of course, war can drive you into being just a horrible person. You know, people who are involved with war and, you know, they get involved with the, you know, become monsters, right? That's, you know, that happens. But for these soldiers to go into a hospital and make a beeline for the incubators, take babies out and lay them on the floor, and what's their motivation for that, right? And take the incubators. Like, you know, they don't have babies with them, right? They still have to lug those things back to Iraq. It, you know, I mean, it sounds horrific because it doesn't, you know, it's not really believable. And the fact that the American people and the American president doubled down on this and the American people bought into this and all the right-wing war hawks shows you people's inability to even question the most obviously bullshit things, right? Because you'd always have to ask, why would they do that? You know, even as monstrous as the Iraqi forces might be, why would they take babies out of incubators and take the incubators? Like, why in the world would they fucking do that, right? They might bomb the hospital and kill some babies, but for them to go in and say, hey, let's grab these incubators, fuck those babies, right? Like, that takes a particular, you know, I mean, you'd have to have some sort of orders coming from the higher up. And, you know, you'd think these people who are just sitting there watching them, right? Like, why wouldn't they kill those people? Hey, well, you guys watch. We're taking your fucking incubators, and we want you to fucking go, hey, are you the daughter of an ambassador? You go back to the United States and tell them what kind of fucking assholes we are, right? You know, the story is just not fucking believable. And, you know, she's believable because she's good at crying, and she's been coached, but that just shows you how easily it is to manipulate people. She's a 15, 16-year-old girl who's able to come into a, you know, foreign country and manipulate a whole country into a multi-million-dollar war that, you know, all this American treasure was looted, and we ended up having to go back so many years later for another bullshit war, right? And so this tells you everything you need to know about the whole system, because nobody called bullshit on this, Democrats, Republicans, any of these people. And no one was calling bullshit because it's hard to make fun of or to question a 16-year-old girl who's crying and saying that she saw something horrific. But they justified this into killing so many more people and destabilizing that whole region eventually would lead to 1.5 million Iraqi deaths. This was the beginning of that, right? So, this is why it's important. And then the lengths in which they'll go to manipulate the whole, anything, this was a Kuwaiti citizen and her father joining forces with the neocons to manipulate the Americans to go in to fight some bullshit war that we didn't really have anything to do with, right? Okay, so Trump gave these bullshit press conferences where on the tarmac and you really can't hear them, right? Biden did this, and it's when they don't really want to talk about something, and so they have the excuse that they're on a fucking runway. Like they have plenty of time. The reporters are around them all the time. They can talk to them in any place that doesn't have a lot of noise and a lot of wind. This is just big spat audio and video and whatever.
One more. Prime Minister Netanyahu said that they had the capacity to take out all of Iran's nuclear facilities. So what role would the U.S. be able to play, and why would they, if Israel says that they have all of the abilities, their own military?
I'm not sure he said that, but they really have a very limited capacity. They can break through a little section, but they can't go down very deep. They don't have that capacity, and we'll have to see what happens. Maybe it won't be necessary.
We have the bunker buster. They don't have any bunker busters over there yet until we give them to them at your expense. Then there was this one.
Former Congressman Matt Gaetz threw out an interesting idea suggesting that if you were to broker a deal where nuclear inspectors go into both Israel and Iran, that you could win a Nobel Peace Prize, and they might even rename it the Trump Peace Prize. Did you hear those? What do you think of that?
Well, they should give me the Nobel Prize for Rwanda, and if you look at the Congo, or you could say Serbia, Kosovo, you could say a lot of them. You could say, the big one is India and Pakistan. I should have gotten it 4 or 5 times.
How'd you get it? Obama got 2. I got it 0. What the fuck? No, it's rigged.
For the, I would think the Abraham Accords would be a good one too. But what do you?
I think you should get one for saying that Gaza just suffers some bad luck and we should turn it into a resort. I mean, if anybody deserves a Peace Prize for something, it's that.
Be a Nobel Peace Prize because they only give it to liberals.
They only give it to liberals, not people like me who do real peaceful things. Of course, he didn't comment on, there's this Fishboy Ghoul whole thing. He didn't comment on the Israel being inspected, right? And the fact that Israel stole their nuclear program from America. That they spied on us, and they always spy on us, in ways that friends don't spy on each other. And so there was a guy who he produced Fight Club movie, a number of other Hollywood blockbuster, big Hollywood producer who had dual citizenship. And it came out, he wrote a book about how he spied on America and stole all these secrets. And, he was involved in Hollywood and spying. And, the Israel's constantly stealing shit from us and manipulating us and doing these things. But somehow they're our friend, right? But the reason they have nuclear weapons is because they stole secrets from America, and that's been documented. Anyways.
Actually, it would have already been destroyed.
Do you want your legacy, Mr. President, to be that of a peacemaker? Do you worry that striking Iran would change that?
Always a peacemaker. That doesn't mean sometimes you need some toughness to make peace, but always a peacemaker.
Can you win in Iran without ground forces?
Say it?
Is an aerial campaign in Iran enough, or do you need ground forces?
Well, I'm not going to talk about ground forces. The last thing you want to do is ground forces.
Does Iran have 2 weeks, or could you strike before that? Are you essentially giving them a 2-week timeline?
I'm giving them a period of time. We're going to see what that period of time is, but I'm giving them a period of time, and I would say 2 weeks would be the maximum.
2 weeks. So, they've been doing them up on the 2 weeks on MSNBC because of that super cut of him saying 2 weeks over and over again. So this happened as well.
What he had to say about Tulsi Gabbard just now.
What intelligence do you have that Iran is building a nuclear weapon? Your intelligence community has said they have no evidence that they are at this point.
Well, then my intelligence community is wrong. Who in the intelligence community said that?
Your director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard.
She's wrong.
Now, what you're seeing play out publicly is...
Okay, so when she testified, Tulsi Gabbard said a couple of things. And now she's either reversed her position or she's, blaming it on the media. The dishonest media is intentionally taking my testimony out of context and spreading fake news as a way to manufacture division. America has intelligence that Iran is at the point that it can produce a nuclear weapon within months, weeks to months, if they decide to finalize. But Israel has said, and America's backed those findings, that all the way back in 1980s that was the case, right? And then, I have those whole clips. Let me just show my thing here, might as well. But, this has been the case for a while. And so there's nothing new for them to drop all these missiles and bombs. The only thing new is that Trump is president and they have a limited window and they're just going for it. They're doing what they always wanted to do, which is a genocide and a ethnic cleanse in the Gaza Strip, the West Bank. They've assassinated the leader of Syria, and now they're going after Iran. And they're doing this because they must be desperate. And what I've said all along is they know America isn't going to be here forever, and they're going to take advantage of America's power while America still has it. I mean, America might remain as a country, but not the way it is now. And, they have this guy that can be totally manipulated and puppeted in the White House. And so, they're going for it. Like, they're fucking going for it. So it isn't that maybe Iran can build a nuclear weapon, but that's been the case since the 80s, according to Israel, and certainly since 10 years ago. And so, they haven't chosen to do that. And there wasn't any indication they were choosing to do that. They have the capabilities, but are they going to do it? So the whole fucking thing is just really disingenuous, right? And she was talking about how there's this hidden group of people that want to push America towards World War III and nuclear war. And then she's doing it. Like, she's acting on it as a total shill. Like, she could actually stand up to Trump and those people. It would be political suicide for now. But later on, you could come back around when everyone fucking hates Trump. But she's going along like a perfect little fucking shill like the rest of them, masquerading as some kind of truth teller. And they're all full of shit, right? Anybody who bows before Trump to push their agenda, thinking that Trump's is gonna go along with them, as soon as somebody more powerful with more money comes in and buys him off and he reverses his position, like he fucked RFK Jr. when Pfizer paid him $1 million in his last term. That's the kind of guy Trump is, and he'll throw you under the bus and all these things. And they're all fucking liars, just like the Democrats are. And so this is, it's just a show for our entertainment as the world around us collapses, because it has to, right? So my wife sent me this morning. Israeli newspaper, 1984. Iran is still in the final stages of making a nuclear bomb. 30 years on and still no sign of a bomb. This is a meme from 2014 because it hasn't been 30 years since 1984. It's been 51 years or 61? I'm just waking up. It's actually 41. And so today's Thursday, June 19th, 2025. And so here is the other clips of Netanyahu claiming that Iran was a couple weeks away from making a nuclear bomb. And so we don't know when that is, right? And this video with Jon Stewart came up. And he has some of these clips here that I had seen before.
And by next spring, at most, by next summer, at current enrichment rates, they will have finished the medium enrichment and move on to the final stage.
So there's a couple of things here. The first one is that this is from 2012. He's at the UN, and there's two more clips I have to show you. And so he's been saying this shit forever. And Jon Stewart's segment is about why now, because this has already been established. So the first piece is, why now? The second piece I'll get to. Let's watch these clips first.
Iran is so dangerous. Weeks away from having the fissile material for an entire arsenal of nuclear bombs.
So this is 2016. He's back at the UN, right? So, and I've seen these clips before. Like, I'm glad that this was here for me to show you. But, I've seen these. They're always talking about this.
I'm not being facetious. I really want to know why we had to bomb Iran now.
Who's we? You an Israeli citizen? Well, who's we? Because we're not on, this idea they're friends of Israel. Well, is Israel friends with America? I mean, they want us to be friends, right? But are they friends? Like, are they our friends when they steal our nuclear secrets and bomb our ships and take our taxpayer monies and get us into wars? And, what kind of friend is that, right? But he's saying we, like, it's not we. Like, he's pretending to be against this thing. I mean, he's saying, it didn't have to be this way because, all the things I've said before. I mean, he's not saying that because, he won't. But, of course, it didn't have to be now. Unless it had to be now. And if it had to be now, it isn't because of what Iran was doing. It's because America's days are numbered.
We're going to show you Iran's secret nuclear files. Here's the warhead. Here's the bomb.
Okay. So I wanted to verify this post, and I don't speak Hebrew, and it's hard to translate something like that, just a picture, into some kind of Google Translate or something. So I put the picture into ChatGTP, and this is why AI is going to take over the world, because it was just this easy. And it translated the headline to Atomic Bomb of Khomeini's Regime Enters the Final Stages with German Assistance. Now, German assistance in 1984 would have had a lot more pop because it was a lot closer to the Holocaust. All of those things. And, the context of this is they are always saying these types of things. I mean, in this case, Israel. Man, Israel's big on this particular stuff about Iran, but it's like a boy who cried wolf type of situation. And so, this is their talking point against the reason for war with Iran. That Iran is going to get a nuclear bomb and drop it on Israel. So we have to stop them at all costs. And we're defending ourselves whenever we do anything against Iran because it's always with this one objective. But why hasn't Iran ever completed this atomic bomb if they were ready in 2 weeks in 2016 or close in 2084, closer again in 2018 and even back to 2012? And these are just times that we know they've said that. Like, how many times is this being said to their own people? In the Israeli people. And so if Iran was this close to getting a nuclear bomb all these different times, why haven't they done it yet? Right? So, So this was a clip from yesterday, Wednesday, June 18th, on MSNBC.
So really, as far as a lot of people that I've been talking to here, they really do want to see the United States get involved. They want to see the United States finish the job. One of the reasons why Benjamin Netanyahu keeps getting elected, keeps getting supported here, is because he tells the Israeli people that he is, and this is something that you hear from people in Israel about Benjamin Netanyahu, that he is an expert on manipulating whoever is in the White House. And that's central to being the prime minister of Israel. And it's something that he says, he constantly repeats to the voting public here, that he and only he can extract what Israelis need out of foreign capitals, specifically Washington. So there is a lot of feeling here that the United States, a lot of confidence that the United States is going to weigh in, that Donald Trump is going to decide to do something against Iran. Maybe that bunker buster bomb that we're all talking about, the one that could possibly burrow in and destroy those remaining centrifuges in the Fordo nuclear facility. Katie?
Benjamin Netanyahu is sounding a lot like Donald Trump.
So there's an old clip in the truth community, and I doubt I'll be able to find it. but it is a female, someone in a powerful position in the state of Israel, who was testifying in some European type of interview type situation. I can't remember exactly the context, but one of the people asked her about the use of victim consciousness in the Jewish culture and the Israeli, culture, mostly to do with the Holocaust. And she said, "Yeah, that's our secret weapon." And you see here Netanyahu saying to his people all the time that he is good at manipulating Western leaders, and that's why you guys should elect me, because I can get them to do what I want them to do. And Donald Trump is the greatest friend ever in the White House. And so this is going to be a meme, a collection of these little clips here that I'll probably use a lot in the future. But as of right now, America has not dropped the bunker busting bombs yet. But whatever Trump does in terms of supporting Israel, which he will, because he's given them a green light all the way from, his 2016 when he was elected the first time. But what this guy just said, he's there in Israel, and this is, I guess probably a pretty well-known thing, that the Israeli people are electing Netanyahu primarily because of what he can get America to do, right? So, that's fucked up in its own right. So I kind of want to make this a shorter video today. I'm going to make another one. So this was put up. One of my viewers sent me this. I believe her. And this is Katie Johnson interviews regarding her experience with Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump. And I'm not, I can't verify this, and, it is what it is. I don't know what the interview is. But she said that she was a 13-year-old girl, and Trump took a liking to her through Jeffrey Epstein, and he asked her to do certain sexual things. And then people came up and told her to put on a blonde wig because she reminded him of Ivanka, his daughter Ivanka, who was 13 at the time, so it was her age. And there's been lots of, there was a guy who was a former employee of Trump who said that he's obsessed with Ivanka and really attracted. Of course, Trump even said that in that interview with the women at The View. There's things that track what she's saying. Of course, they could have done the research and figured out these things and used it in a fake story. I'm not sure, again, this is, whatever. Trump was friends with Jeffrey Epstein. Said Jeffrey Epstein liked to party and liked young girls. And he liked them young, and he didn't have a problem with it. And he was a part of the whole Jeffrey Epstein thing. Of course, this came out with Elon Musk, who now has basically disappeared himself after his feud and beef with Trump. But, like I said, it's each person can figure this out for themselves. I mean, it's not, you can have an opinion on it, and there's no way to prove it, but he definitely had an inappropriate relationship with Jeffrey Epstein to some extent. Trump is a womanizer, and he did have the Miss Teen USA, and his former employee said he used to inspect the girls. He used to have them all come out, he'd inspect them. Like they'd all stand in a line and he'd inspect them all, like so, which is pretty creepy. And, if that's, again, some of this stuff has to be true because Trump cheated on his wife and he banged porn stars and he put hookers up in, he put women who was basically prostituting themselves for him, like that former playmate. He put her up in an apartment, where he'd, have her stored away, and he was still married. And we know he'd just done a lot of womanizing things, the grab him by the pussy thing and all the rest of the stuff. So, whatever truth there is, whatever this Jeffrey Epstein relationship is, it's not, at the very least, he engaged with Jeffrey Epstein and women through Jeffrey Epstein, and whether they were underage or not, which, that's, maybe they know, maybe they don't, maybe the information's out there. But he's, he palled out, he palled around when partied with Jeffrey Epstein. So there's that. Okay, just two more things to get to. This is I Love My People. I'm not sure who his people are. He's at the Impact Awards, so maybe this is people of color or African American people. But Don Lemon's Keke Palmer is obviously a singer. Keke Palmer shutting it down at the Impact Awards. And so here's Don Lemons. I have a meme I'll put in at the end of this thing. But he used to get drunk on New Year's Eve when Anderson Cooper and them, and he would host New Year's Eve in Louisiana, which would be an hour after Eastern time, 1 o'clock in the morning, New York time, right? So they would go through the country like that, and there'd be a drunk CNN person in their hometown or home area in the different time zones celebrating New Year's Eve. And Don Lemons would always get, shit-faced and would babble incoherently. Aside from his doing a shitty job and being stupid and having remedial takes and being difficult to work with and having no audience, he also liked to get drunk and do stupid shit. Remember, he confronted some guy taking a video of him, and he said, "Do you like vagina or do you like, penis?" And then he reached down to his crotch and then wanted the guy to smell his fingers. Remember that? That happened. And so here he is here. Woo! Wait, Don, you're not in your own shot. Boom. Make sure you end up on you, Don. What do you guys say? Boom. Look, it's me. I'm there. It's about me, not the singer. It's kind of about me. It's about me, and I'm just here, and I'm doing my thing, and.
I see a former college girlfriend in the crowd. Yeah?
He had a college girlfriend. It's 2019. This is Brooke Baldwin. Remember, I do Brooke Baldwin's voice. Brooke Baldwin. Well, it doesn't work at CNN anymore.
I do. I think there's Michelle. Hi, Michelle. I used to date her. Say that right here. Hi, right there. Right there. There she is. Oh.
He's always been like a ridiculous drunk. And it turned out that this was a local news reporter. Never met him.
Mom, if you're watching at home, you remember Michelle? Anyways, yes, I did. Wow, are you serious? Yes, I did.
That's classic Don Lemons here. So remember, whatever Griffin, her name is something Griffin. I want to say Patty, but I know that's not true. She's fallen on hard times. She got fired for doing obnoxious things, and they replaced her with his buddy now. But back in 2017, she was still on CNN thing here. And there's Brooke Baldwin, Don Lemons.
Hi, guys.
Hola.
Happy almost New Year.
Hi. Oh, boy.
We're at the Spotted Cat. The time has almost arrived.
Okay, tell them what's going to happen. I'm going to get something.
So we've invited our new friend Chris over. And Chris clearly has much ink. And the decision all night has been, should it be a tattoo or a piercing? I mean, what are you thinking? The people want to know what crazy, silly...
Let me ask. Kathy, I think
Kathy Griffin.
Anderson might steer me wrong. Kathy, what should I do?
Nipple, 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 nipple.
No, Don.
I love you, Kathy.
No,
I love you.
No, Don. Anderson Cooper trying to be the voice of reason. Don't get your nipple pierced on fucking CNN, a news channel, on New Year's Eve when you're drunk. That might hurt your career, Don. Like,
I love you too, but we really don't need to see what's about to happen here.
No, Don.
I love you, Don. No, no. Keep it close. Keep it close.
All right.
I love you more, Don.
So listen, since I promised, thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Anderson. That was good. The decision is, Chris?
I'm thinking ear or something more fun, but ear's cool.
Okay.
Ear's cool.
Let's do it. Hang on.
he's getting his ear pierced.
Hang on.
Take a shot, Don.
Tell him what you have to do first.
Take a shot, Don.
Can we please not give him shots, by the way?
And then everything's pre-sterilized, ready to go. So we're good.
Okay.
This is pre-COVID. This is 17.
Okay, I'm cutting you off after this one. Should I cut him off?
Is this going to hurt?
It's not going to hurt me. You'll be fine.
He's a professional medical person with a mask.
This is seriously about to happen.
Don't get blood on my
jacket. Do you need to hold my
jacket.
hands?
Yeah.
Oh,
If this hurts, I'm gonna be
Lord.
so
Is your
mad.
mother watching?
Yeah.
I bet your mom is.
Oh,
Mama
boy.
Lemon. I don't know what he's thinking.
All right, hold on.
At
Here we
least it's
go.
just his ear.
Thanks, Brooke Baldwin.
You know what I'm saying?
You know what you're saying, Brooke.
Here we go. Oh, God.
Oh.
He just he's already screaming when the guy just put a dot there.
Get blood on the jacket. It has to go back. It goes back to Brooks Brothers.
Here we go. Here's the needle. Here's the needle.
Ow!
The whole crowd. Oh.
Well, I thought ears bled profusely. Remember with Trump's pizza ketchup gate?
The whole crowd's like, what is going on?
You guys' ear pierced. It's not some fucking big deal. And people get drunk and get their ears pierced all the time.
Oh, I'm in pain.
Wow.
I'm in pain. Why are you doing this, my friends?
Well, you have your ears pierced, right, Brooke? Right, Brooke?
Kathy Anderson.
Look, Anderson can't take it. You know, there's fucking millions, tens of thousands of kids dying in Palestine, but he's taken aback by Don Lemon's getting his ear pierced.
It's the end of Rudy. Some urging happens.
Oh, it's a Florida Lee.
Oh my.
Okay, so let me go to my, I have some meme with Don Lemon's dancing on New Year's, but he got drunk every year, and I mean, this was something CNN did, and they said no more alcohol because it's supposed to be a fucking news network.
Are you guys hammered?
Oh my God.
Are you guys hammered?
Okay, so let's end here with Donnie O'Sullivan. And, he's been mocking these UFO people. And, that ship has kind of sailed. So, when you think about this planet, the abundance of life, they're finding new species of life all the time. Surface life, and there's more different types of creatures in the sea. And, if you've ever just see the abundance of life anywhere, the proliferation of life, I talked about all the tadpoles we have in our pond, tens of thousands of them, right? And then all the different plant species and all the different, climates and things that we have here. If you've done any sort of traveling and you go out to nature, and to think this is the only fucking planet in a universe that we can't even comprehend how big it is and don't have any data to even support that, right? Where, there's stars, these, sun-like stars across the frickin' universe and even our galaxy. And to think we're the only planet that has life on it, it's silly. It's something that fucking happens. You think it only happens one place. And so if there's life on other planets, then there's going to be intelligent life. And so it'd be like just moronic not to believe that there's more intelligent life out there. And like I said before, the powers that be didn't want you to think that because religions and governments don't want you to think that there's something more powerful than people. It would be humbling, but you see it all the time. You know, when you go to the ocean, like when you're a kid and even now, and you're standing there and a wave just slaps you around and knocks you down, you know, the power of the ocean, and you feel small. You look at the grains of sand on the beach, and, you know, you think about that's nothing compared to the amount of planets and suns and stars that are in the universe. You know, we're small, like we're nothing compared to the greater scheme of things. But there's such narcissism and myopia in the human consciousness. And so this guy's trying to mock people who believe in what should be obvious to everybody.
Greetings. Do you all come in peace? We're all fellow Earthlings here. Oh, we're out here.
And he's not funny. He comes and he tries to mock like truther type of stuff. And, you know, they really think he's a wanker. Somebody else, one of the Irish viewers, talking about everyone in Ireland just thinks this guy's a wanker. But somehow he's got a job at CNN, right?
Because we're looking for UFOs. We're also looking for what is not a UFO.
I just put it right over it, and then...
Oh, see that one?
That was a bird, I think.
Oh.
I knew I was going to be an astronomer when I was 9 years old. Okay? I actually had a missing time event. I lost a whole day, and it put me in the hospital. And I thought, boy, this universe is something crazy up there. I have to keep looking up.
We are here in the California desert on our way to Contact in the Desert, the biggest gathering of ufologists in the world.
Gathering. It's the biggest gathering. You know, these people are whatever they are, right? You can find crazy people, and certainly crazy people are going to be in the truth community, fringe people, and they're going to find crazy people looking for UFOs or Bigfoot or whatever it is, right? You know, there's people who are more reasonable and rational, and, you know, it's something else where it's not an obsession, it's not weird. But they always find the weird people, because of course they do. They want to shit on people and their beliefs. But, you know, like, it's not everybody who believes in that there's life outside of planet Earth is like this, right? So they always find the people they can mock, either in the truth community or here. And yeah, you can always find morons. You know, Bill Maher did a thing about searching for God, like he's an atheist. And he found the stupidest religious people out there. You find the bottom of the barrel, and that's not journalism. You find the stupidest people, and then you mock their beliefs. Yeah, well, that's, you know, that doesn't mean the whole believing in UFOs is silly or fucking extraterrestrial life or whatever, off-planet life, because it's just obvious that there is. Like, you don't need any evidence. You just look around you and there's life here, right? Just the same thing with past lives. You know, the evidence is familiarity with people, places, and things from a past experience here, where you feel these things, and there's other, you know, internal evidence of past lives, right? But it's not something that's provable, not scientifically or not in a way that, you know, these dopes would ever accept. But, you know, it just makes logical sense, like it's practical. You know, if everything exists where you graduate, right? You see this in your own life where you graduate from things. You know, you're able to move on from something because you've mastered something. Like everything is like that. Like whether it's, you know, schools that are, you know, manufactured or just things that happen in your life and you move up to the next level, right? The reward for work is more work. That's one of the teachings of the Sizemore system on a divine level. And you move up levels in your consciousness and your ability, you know, throughout your existence. You graduate from being a kid into being a preteen, and from a preteen to being a teenager, and then a teenager to an adult, young adult, and then a young adult into being parents, you know, having jobs and things like this, and having families and having your own kids. And everything changes. My consciousness now and my understanding of life is so much different from when I was younger, right? This is why I talk about being a dumb fuck, right? Being a dummy. And so, you know, there's evidence for all these things. But they make it, you know, like, well, prove it. Like, prove it. No, really prove it. You know, well, of course you can't prove certain things, right? And, you know, I mean, there's UFOs, but they could be some, anything that's not, you're not going to get 100% proof. But to think that we're the only planet that has life is silly. You know how old the universe is. We're talking about the Earth itself is billions of years, right? It has gone through, like, there's fucking dinosaur bones and shit, right? There's, we've gone through all these different periods. There's life buried under the, this the ancient architecture and things like this that, we have no explanation for. The pyramids and whatever. But, these dopes are like, just show me. No, you can show me concrete proof. And they talk to the stupidest people. And, of course, you're not going to get anything. It's going to make it sound silly. You talk to a dumb fuck, some crazy person, and they're going to make it sound silly. But that's not journalism. Like, that's being a predator. Like, that's predatory, right? That's, that's disinformation.
World.
Here, we're light years past the question whether we are alone in the universe.
Like, okay, so do you think this woman's got something worth saying? This is her choice of earrings, right? There's this templates. It's like there's a big business out there in UFO kind of disinformation, alien shit, where there's a lot of disinformation passed around, and people market shit, and they have conferences, and there's people who are seeking this, and like it's just it's a scam on top of something that's real, right? And you have taken advantage of people's obsession with this thing. Like how much those fucking things cost.
Alone in the universe.
And again, he's showing somebody, like, this is the look at this crazy fuck.
In the world.
Here, we're light years past the question whether we are alone in the universe. The stuff that might sound crazy to you and me is pretty standard here. Instead, people share stories of encounters.
It was like light,
abductions.
Two very tall Nordic-looking beings and had a couple of little short grays on each side.
And things they just can't explain.
When you see orbs dancing in the sky like they're skipping across water, that's not military.
But there is still one debate to be had.
Everybody's talking about what the Trump administration is going to tell the world about UFOs.
See this thing, this guy's a total.
Administration is going to tell the world about UFOs.
That look he gave fuck, right here.
UFOs.
Oh fuck! I can't stop it. Like it's just so obnoxious and like condescending.
Stephen, you say we're on the cusp of a major disclosure event.
The disclosure event.
Okay, so we saw this before. We'll go fast forward to further in here.
This UAP issue has been effective, so I can see why people are optimistic. I don't feel the same way. I haven't seen evidence that the new administration, new-ish administration, is...
See, my point about this is, why is CNN shitting on this? This guy shits on the truth community, and he goes and finds QBs and, all the, like, stupid stuff, the flat earthers, all the, like, goofy shit, crazy people. People obsessed with it, too. You have to live a life. Like, there's being obsessed with extraterrestrials is, it's weird. Like it's, because it's not an end. It's not a goal. It's not a solution. Like you've been lied to by your government on every level. And so you should be aware of all of it. Like I cover here, you've been lied about our history. Where we came from, like all the things, like why our lifespan so short and so compact, right? Lied about, any number of things historically to do with the human population, where it came from. And you've been lied in like the Bible and these other religious texts, and then lied by science and the Darwin's bullshit evolution theory. There's forbidden archaeology, the Forbidden Archaeology book. And there's evidence, and I don't know, like any that guy might be a quack too, but it's out there. There's evidence out there. Like there's, or disinformation, that guy. I don't think so, but there's these, this archaeology that they won't let you, that isn't public. Like they found a human being, like a human skeleton inside marble, like marble formed around the rock marble, formed around the guy. And they're cutting the marble and they come across like there's a skeleton inside. And that would mean that there's been people here for 1 million years. Like whatever time it takes for marble to form, it's like over 1 million years or something. And so, there's all this evidence out there that's legitimate. And they've been covering it up because they've been lying to you. Like everything that we know as human history is a facade for various reasons about power and control. And so, this stuff with aliens is just a part of all that. And there's a true history out there that they know about and don't want you to know. And they've gone into this direction. They've come up with the Darwinian theory and these other things that are, that are clearly like junk science, bullshit science, right? And so they're mocking these people for that reason. Like they take the crazies and you look at it and you're like, well, I don't want people to think of me like that. That's what they do with the truth community. They take the craziest truthers like Alex Jones and people like that, and all the cubies, and they put them on the news, and then it makes you not want to state things publicly because you don't want to be lumped in with these crazy fucks, right? Which, and it doesn't matter either way. The truth eventually comes out. Like whatever it is there. The truth is the truth. Like, it's there for people to find. To seek the truth, right? To seek divinity. Because, everything else is some kind of, an abomination, a perversion of the purity of the real truth, right? Whatever the truth is. And no matter how bad you manipulate it, it eventually has to come out, right? It's just, there's no way it won't. Like anything that's a perversion has to crumble at some time. Anything that's is a manipulation of reality eventually comes out. Like there's no way of stopping it. Reality always is, seeking to be seen, right? It's something that you're born to pursue. That when you are being lied to, there's some part of you that wants to seek the truth. That's why all these people are going and trying to figure out, something beyond the official story. They're just not, well people mentally and emotionally, so they get sucked into scams. And it's like, all right, you're being lied to, and then people can sell you a fake truth, which happens all the time in the truth community. Like something that's fantastical and interesting, because you now have to replace the indoctrination of bullshit that you've been given, right?
I've been told that before.
Yes, but I am a galactic dog.
Ah.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet Wolf.
She's a galactic. Let's go back here.
By our cosmic identity, determined by our date of birth.
March 24th, what year?
91.
1991, you are a white overtoned dog.
I've been told that before.
Yes, but I am
You're a white overtoned dog.
I am a galactic dog.
Ah.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet Wolf.
There you go. That's right.
You've had a lot of encounters.
They got fucking uniforms, bro. Like, I mean, it's I like hearing crazy people talk as much as anybody else. Crazy people are fun. They're interesting, right? But there's crazy people. Like sometimes they're beyond. They've attuned to something, and they're not dealing with it. Like sometimes the truth has hit them, and they are not able to deal with. There might be something there. Like a crazy person might see things, right, that other people can't see. There's this guy. When I went to a spiritual gathering, when Master Chargy came to America in Molina, and the energy at the gathering is like beyond anything that you can imagine. Just like it's just this, you don't want to leave this. It's like you go to this, like you're like in heaven, like it's like being in heaven but being on planet Earth. And the gathering ends, and you have to go back to your life, and it's kind of a sucky thing, because it's just it's not something that's there perpetually. It's there for, it's like you cross over to the etheric world, and you experience like blissful divinity, And then you have to go back and live your life because you can't like stay in there forever. And there's this guy who was from Canada. And I'm one of the last people there. You know, the gathering's over and the energy's at the ashram's still good, but it's not the same. You know, and you know that it's whatever. And there's work that has to be done. So I booked my flight like the day after, and I'm helping out, put away chairs and doing things. And there's this guy, and he's walking towards me, and he just goes down on the ground and starts crying, like, because he's leaving. And you can see the guy's a little bit crazy. And years later, I see the guy at the ashram in Chennai. And he's moved there permanently. He's married an Indian girl, and he ended up getting like extended visa, which was, you know, he had a caretaker there, and he's a little bit crazy, right? And he did this rock garden. It's like this, you know, the place is like a botanical gardens. It's a 20-acre ashram, and he did these botanical gardens, and he moved the rocks. And I would talk to the guy, and you know, he was crazy, but he said interesting things. And some of the things, but one of the things is when Kamlesh Patel was made master, he was sure that the guy was a piece of shit. And we're sitting in the cafe and eating, you know, like they had this little cafe there where they, you know, had like Indian food, you know, at cheap prices. So like people could come and eat and then go to work or whatever, you know, come during lunch and meditate and get a quick bite to eat and things, or just people who stay there. And he's just ragging on Kamlesh in a way that made me uncomfortable because he's being so loud and everyone could hear him, you know. But he turned out to be 100% right about the guy. And no one else saw it. He's like, this guy, you know, he's going on and on about it. So, you know, sometimes crazy people have something worth hearing. But these groups of crazy people that get together and they believe weird shit and they have their, you know, they just made up this stuff. They're not looking for truth. You know, they know that they're being lied to, but they've created this other fantastical type of thing, right? These conferences. And, you know, maybe they have some things to offer, but they're not going to, maybe they'll be right about some things and some things in their belief system are accurate, but they're never going to show you that here because they have a goal here is to make this sound crazy. And it's not crazy. It's crazy to believe the opposite, that we're the only planet that can sustain life. And so, you know, and there's been evidence, I mean, so much evidence over historical evidence and cultural evidence that there's been extraterrestrial life here, including cave art and the pyramids and all this other stuff, right? You know, it's been documented. And, you know, it's just there for everyone to see. But this piece of shit and CNN, you know, like they're trying to mock something that everyone should kind of understand is probably the truth, even if it isn't provable. That, you know, we're not the only planet that has life. Like, that's just a weird thing to believe and very narcissistic and myopic, right?
Continuously.
Yeah, and I met the enclave of extraterrestrials we work with when they walked into our facility in Port Orchard, Washington. So she interacts with them way more than I do.
You met the enclave, did you? You did, you know, this. You're an official person. You got your badge there.
But I have met them.
You know, is it somebody sitting in a room with you? Is it
just got
with you?
Home, got in bed, was comfortable, thought I was just going to go out to sleep, and all of a sudden my TV screen split, and a gray walked through it and said to me, unite and come together, that this is the thing that will save Earth from...
And a gray walked through. My TV screen is a porthole. It's a porthole for grays, and they come through. And they tell us shit. They're like, you know, people who are seen as crazy and have no, you know, ability to influence society on the whole, they decide to tell us about how to save humanity because that's what would make sense. They wouldn't go and deal with the people who have power and say and would have more credibility. They find some crazy fuck in a wheelchair that's living in some trailer somewhere and give her the recipe for saving humanity. So she can go to conferences like this, which are taken seriously, and talk to Donnie O'Sullivan and get the message out.
What's coming?
Bringing people together.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a widespread message of unity here, but also one of urgency.
I feel like if this is the truth that came out, It will heal a lot of things. It will bring a lot of people together.
That an encounter could make us
Like it's the jewelry's the best.
better humans.
People, we were hugging and kissing and crying. And that event made me a more, honestly, made a kinder, more gentle person.
And that not disclosing
What are they? What are they up to? Free alien info, and it's real. It's just these high quality posters.
proof of extraterrestrial life could have apocalyptic consequences.
How will you feel if we get to the end of this Trump term and nothing's changed? There's no disclosure, there's no big announcements.
I'm not going to mince words. We will have a nuclear war before the end of the Trump term. We're dancing on the edge of the volcano. It's coming at us from 18 different directions.
That's true. That's probably true.
There's like 9 or 10 things that could trigger it tomorrow.
This disclosure is the only thing that will prevent
That's right.
nuclear war.
This is boom.
Yeah, it's not going to present shit. You know, what I know about all these things, that when YouTube videos start to surface about UFOs, and people were like, that's fake. And some of the things look more realistic than others, but you can't, they're hard to verify. And people were like, that's fake. And now with deep fake and AI technology, then nothing's believable. So they can manufacture some fake invasion, and people in the truth community will hesitate to believe anything the government says. And it could be real aliens, and, it could be not. Like, so we have the Hollywood technology now, and now with AI, it's like everything could be, the deep fake stuff. Nothing's believable. And so there's no way people are going to believe this. Like, unless they see a spaceship right above their house and they can throw a rock and hit it. And, there's just no way they're going to believe in it, right? Because that'd be great throwing rocks at it. We're the new Palestinians, where we have no, weapons against something that has superior technology. But, people are so fucked anyway. And even if they realize there's extraterrestrials, it doesn't really change that much. Because people already know they're being lied to for the most part. So there's nothing out there that's going to help people other than connecting to the divinity within them in terms of navigating what's going to happen and, building a skill set. But like whatever it is, people are, for the most part, incapable of giving up their lifestyle the way it is now. People have been weakened severely and won't adapt to, it would be difficult for them to go back and live more primitive human-based lives, whatever that happens. And so information and revelation and reveals aren't going to change a thing.
Within days, everybody that's got access to any kind of a media around the world, which is 8 billion people, is going to know we're not alone. This is a.
They're not going to know. If Trump comes out here and says, yes, there has been extraterrestrial activity, the first thing is, well, why you guys been lying to us and how long? And the other people would be like, well, it's Trump. He's a lying piece of shit. Like all the people who hate Trump aren't going to believe it. And most of the Trumpers and people, you guys will be disappointed in the UFO community because it's not saying things that you believe. Like when it doesn't say that, that a gray split open a TV and fell into this woman's room and gave her the fucking recipe for how to save humanity. Like when that shit isn't validated, right? Just like with the Kennedy stuff and the Jeffrey Epstein. Like all the disinformation that's out there, and when it doesn't line up with these crazy fucks believe in, it's not going to change a thing. Trump could get out right now and say, we have aliens and show alien bodies, and then still people wouldn't believe it, or alien spaceships. And it isn't going to be like that. It won't ever be like that. They won't let them do that, whatever capacity it is. There's handlers. You don't think there's handlers? The whole thing's fucking silly. And so first, your audience, people aren't ready for any kind of real truthful change. People suck in their ability to understand reality and process things. And so whenever there's a reveal, that doesn't mean that people are going to get it. Like, it's silly. Like, you haven't been doing this with any consciousness to understand where people are at. You think that people are going to suddenly all believe what you believe? And when your evidence doesn't support what you believe, then what's that going to be like? So it's fucking silly. Nothing's going to change anything except war, starvation, real calamities in terms of big changes. Of course, the changes that are coming with AI and these other things.
Paradigm shift, but it's really a worldview change.
Yeah.
People will start fixing things. They will start able to fix things they couldn't before because they were locked into an earlier worldview. And one of the things we have to fix, we have to get rid of the nukes. We've got to end the massive military that's spending untold trillions of dollars while people starve to death. These kind of things are doable.
For many,
Yeah, they're not.
here, whether Trump's government discloses what it really knows is of lesser importance. The truth is coming anyway.
The truth. The truth is coming. It's coming, the truth.
If you told someone this 20 years ago, how do you think they would have reacted?
They say you're crazy.
Thank you. That's why.
So what's changed?
This community.
Community.
He's going to cry.
Yep. Our community. This community. That's what changed.
Yeah.
People waking up and going, we need to talk about this. I'm like, yes, we do. We need to talk about it a lot. Because it's coming whether we are ready or not. So.
Back in the desert, UFO enthusiasts are still looking, with a couple of attendees suggesting the conference itself might have had an encounter.
We got some really strange phenomena. So they're all up there, the presenters.
Right.
And then we're taking these pictures up. We get this stuff on it.
Oh, it looks like a face.
Yeah, it does. But there's another one that even looks more like a face. What?
Boom. Way to go, Downey. All right. So that's Tony O'Sullivan. You know, why would they be putting energy and effort into this, right? Well, you're trying to stop people from believing UFOs. Like, this is, you know, there's no value. Like, this is like low-calorie content with all their other bullshit that they do, right? Like, they don't need to do this, but they still do. They still think that they have to go out and shit on, you know, real stuff or stuff that has some reality based in its, you know, in the you know, the idea that there is life outside of planet Earth and more intelligent life and more evolved species. And of course, there's etheric life, which they could never, you know, like that's totally unprovable, at least in terms of, you know, you can have how it affects people interacting with etheric beings, but it's not something that you can prove scientifically. But, you know, why take a giant shit all over this stuff for no reason, right? It's just, it's unnecessary. Like, it's not, you know, people aren't going to run to these communities in droves. And, you know, it's, I mean, the way the internet is and the way people are, it's just all a big fucking mess anyway, which is, you know, the way they want it. You know, there's no real, you know, definitive reality anymore because of the diverse level of consciousness and beliefs that people have. And, you know, there's no consensus on anything. And that's, you know, where it's all manufactured reality. And whatever your reality is, that's your truth, which has been pushed by the liberals and these people anyway. You know, your reality is the truth, when it's clearly it's distorted. And that, you know, they did this with the stuff with the gender stuff and all the rest of it. But anyways, you know, like they were pushing this idea that somebody was the opposite sex inside, right? That somebody was born in the wrong body. And they push this where these people should be supported, you know, and that's totally unprovable. And yet they're disputing whether there could be life outside of planet Earth. And regardless how weird you know, they find the weirdest people to interview. But as, you know, these groups of people that gather, I mean, you know, it's one thing to believe in extraterrestrials. It's another to, you know, group yourself up with these people, right? But anyways, that's, you know, that's what CNN is doing. Okay, so it's done with this video. I shot the next clips that you're going to see of Tony O'Sullivan and his takedown of UFO people. And I was going to get ready to edit this, and there are two videos. One has to do with the UFOs, this one with Don Lemons. So, this is at that very same award show. So Don Lemon's won an award for social impact. You know, whatever your beliefs are, your cause is, Don Lemon's is going to make it worse, right? No matter what whatever your belief system is, no matter what you're shilling for, what you're pitching, if Don Lemons is on your side, he's going to embarrass you. Like he's going to be like the crazy people you see talking about UFOs, right? You know, Don Lemons is an embarrassment, and you don't want him on your team. And so whatever work you think he's doing, but he's going to get a standing ovation here. And so, you know, I mean, it's, well, let's just watch. They're playing that rap song, the Snoop Dogg thing. So they give an award, and look, there's going to be a standing ovation. They'll copyright the song. Nothing's being said here, but look, the people on their feet, standing ovation for the guy. Social impact, right?
I got the stage now. So y'all gonna have to play me off. Is Miss Ross here? Is Miss Ross gonna sing me off? How you doing, Evan? That's my boo back there. Hey, Cynthia. How you doing, baby? Cynthia Bailey in the house.
All right, so he's going to milk this for everything. He's literally saying they're going to have to yank him off the stage.
I'm nervous. I am never nervous.
You're always nervous.
But I'm not speechless tonight. So thank you, everyone. Jason. So, Jeff Evans. Jason? Whatever. Jason, thank you for seeing me. Okay? Thank you for seeing me.
Woo!
Thank you all for unlocking everyone in this room tonight and beyond who can hear or see me, listen to the sound of my voice. You have no idea how much this moment means to me. Okay? Now, I just want to start by saying again, thank you, Jason, but when Jason first told
Thanks, Jason.
me about the sunrise, that it was an impact award, I said, me? You're talking about this Don Lemon? Because there was a minute, Blaine, when a lot of folks were ready to count me out.
And they should have, because you suck horribly. Like they fired you from CNN because you suck so bad. And then you did that disastrous thing with Elon Musk. And now you have like a really shitty show on YouTube. Like a really embarrassing show. And he's like, doing shit like he's doing now, right?
Let's be real. All right? But life is a funny way of teaching you exactly who you are. When the lights go down, when the headlines fade, when the cameras, it doesn't mean that you do. When the cameras are packed away, you find out what you're made of. The so-called gatekeepers, when they close the gate on you, you find out what you're made of. And let's be honest, a few of those old gates, right?
The gatekeepers was your lack of audience and the fact that you pissed off all your coworkers. I mean, there's gatekeepers, but they don't mind having a guy like you around. It's just that you suck so bad and that they gave you $24 million just to go away. You pissed off your coworkers. You were embarrassing yourself. They dumped you on the morning show because you couldn't hold your other show. And especially after Chris Cuomo's left and Donald Trump, people stopped caring about the anti-Trump stuff. And you're an embarrassment, bro.
Right now, they're rusting as we speak. Amen. Some of those old gatekeepers right now, they're watching us. Not on cable. So, Jeff. But on TikTok, on Instagram, y'all can't shut me up. On YouTube, on podcasts, on independent platforms, because the truth is, voices that were once pushed to the margins are now driving the conversation. All right?
He's trying to, like, after shitting on all of us for years on CNN, he's trying to be one of us, right? Like, yes, we were pushed, we were marginalized. Not you, Don. Not people like you. Not, people who are saying the fucking bullshit that CNN is ordered to say. but people who actually had independent voices. We were pushed. Not you. Like, you have nothing to do with it. You were fired because you suck, and you suck even worse now that you're on YouTube. Like, you suck without a staff. Like, it's you just being you without a filter, without a staff, and that's, like, horrible. And the fact that you would get an award, social impact award. Like, what could he be impacting socially, right? Like, do the people who are there cheering him watch him? Like, he's horrible.
And you can't stop what is in motion. It is in motion. Now, I know that some of you in this room, some of y'all watching from afar, you had your own fight.
He cut himself off. This is his own channel. There he is. Like, he knew it's coming. This is so bad. Well, your thing sucks if you're giving Don Lemons an award. Okay, so I'm in the editing process, and I want to add something here. Let me just show you this one clip of him and Chris Cuomo's. And he always demonized truthers, conspiracy theorists, anti-vaxxers, pretty much anybody with outside of the box views. He was the perfect shill, but he was too dumb to really come up with great arguments. But he was just really wholly unlikable. And CNN was carrying him, right? So let's go to the Chris Cuomo thing here first.
I think we have to stop coddling people when it comes to this and the vaccine, saying, oh, you can't shame them. You can't call them stupid. You can't call them silly. Yes, they are. The people who aided and abetted Trump are stupid because they believed his big lie. The people who are not getting vaccines, who are believing the lies on the internet instead of science, it's time to start shaming them. What else? Or leave them behind. Because they are keeping the majority of Americans behind.
Don Lemon's trying to repackage himself as a non-mainstream guy. He desperately wanted to stay. They paid him $22 million or $24 million to make him go away. He was under contract. And so they could have kept him in some capacity, but he was saying too much stupid shit that had nothing to do with race or LGBTQ stuff. I mean, two demographics that he pretends to be for. He was just saying stupid shit like anti that stuff about Nikki Haley being past her prime, and then his female co-anchor getting pissed at him, right? And some of these other things that he said, that arguing with Vivek Ramaswamy and that stuff, like just dumb stuff. And the problem was his ratings were horrible. And so they chose to just pay him to not be on their channel anymore. Like, just fire him and just pay him off. And, that isn't a guy who's being marginalized or ostracized because he's speaking truth to power, like he tries to pretend now. It's somebody who sucks so bad they ate $24 million and said goodbye to him. Like he could have been there. And if they offer, in fact, he's gone back on CNN. He's gone on Aaron Burnett's show a couple of times because they're still buddies. So he's been back to CNN. He's not pissed at him, right? And if they offered him a job, or MSNBC did, or even some of these, networks that Chris Cuomo's on, Newsmax, some of these other things, he'd totally go back on. And so he isn't really, people who are seeking the truth. There's these people who are fired, or they, their career sucks and is going in the shitter in Hollywood or something like that, and they can't fucking, they can't be famous anymore. And all of a sudden they embrace the truth community, or they never really that famous. They never really broke into Hollywood or mainstream media. It's a lot different than people who never wanted to be a part of mainstream media, never wanted to be on CNN or any of these networks, and are just people verbalizing their own, points of view, like me and millions of other people who do this organically, and we want no part of that shit, right? That circus. Like, it's beneath us. And, not in some arrogant way. It just sucks so bad. The only thing they can really do is mock it. And occasionally they actually cover news, so it's helpful when something real happens and they, before they begin spinning it or doing any of these things. Or, now with Trump, because they could just cover Trump and not have to lie because Trump's gone off the fucking rails. But even then, they still suck worse than everybody else. And so someone like this is not a part of the, he's the opposite of alternative media. All right, let's get into this last bit here.
Tonight on The Future of Everything, we've got some new UAP video from filmmaker and journalist Jeremy Corbell, who is standing by to break it all down. But first, here's a little bit of a closer look. This is
on MSNBC now, and they have a younger guy, and this is trying to bring in viewers. So you have CNN that's trying to shit on UAPs, UFOs, and this guy, I mean, it's just silly. Like, either one of these things, you guys cover everything the same. CNN and MSNBC are basically the same. That MSNBC is a little bit more anti-Trump and a little bit more liberal, slightly, and, whatever. But they're basically the same thing. And, they got Donny O'Sullivan doing his bullshit out there. Then they have this over here where they're showing you, there's these so-called UAPs and legitimizing it. And that's fucked, right? Because that's a complete different coverage.
Is a freeze frame. This is with some boosted contrast of what appears to be a disc-shaped object captured back in 2020, possibly somewhere over Afghanistan, Pakistan, the border there. Roll the video here. Jeremy says that this was filmed by some sort of asset, DOD asset, and forward-looking infrared shot from above looking down, and was, according to Corbell, the U.S. Air Force describing this object as possibly navigating through the clouds. There's no heat signature that you can see here. Nothing you would expect for a normal aircraft as it dips its way through. We're told the Pentagon logged it as a UAP, but so far it has not appeared on the Aero public list.
Okay, so you get the idea. Like, if this is real or that's real, it's the overall idea of it. Like, there has to be life outside of planet Earth. Because other than some biblical bullshit that's, manipulated for power and, these things, right? Having the supreme God, the divine being exclusive to, gatekeepers in the religious sector. There's no reason not to believe if there's life here, there's life somewhere else. That if this can happen once, it can happen millions of times in a universe as vast as ours. And so whatever that means, we were being lied to. Like, it should be something that everyone says, yeah. And so there would be this idea that there's something beyond us, that we're not the apex predator, we're not the smartest creatures in the universe, and they don't want you to know that. So it's just that simple. Anyways, okay, so let me wrap this one up here. I'm still going to try to put out a video on Apocalypse Now. I want to check in and show what I'm doing there in terms of views and money and, all that stuff, because that's kind of what it's all about. In terms of me posting extra stuff there. There's not a need. I was being censored here on certain things that I was able to post there, the Hollywood celebrities dropping like flies. But, I'm going to give it a whirl for a while and see its effects. I also started a podcast thing where it's just, videos I've already made that I'm uploading there. And I'll continue to do that. I had an interesting exchange with ChatGPT over it because ChatGPT is very helpful. And I want to read that probably at the start of my next video. Anyways, let's wrap this one up here. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely pointing for the apocalypse and the ascension, and we'll have a blessed day and be grateful.